You speaking to me? Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Planning Board and AHRB in the Village of Dobbs Ferry for Thursday evening, January 5, 2023. Amazing. We have a very extensive agenda tonight, and so we should get right at it. The first part of our agenda is pre-submission conference for Planning Board AHRB agenda. And number one on the agenda is North Mountain Drive, continuation of referral from Zoning Board of Appeals for proposed plan to construct a new home on a vacant lot.
And Mr. Chairman, this particular application, because we're for efficiency, we've requested that Patty just present the new material that was submitted this last month.
Thank you.
I'll be brief. Good evening, Chairman Hunter, members of the Planning Board, Kristen Wilson here representing the applicant. Since we were last here, we had a brief appearance at the Zoning Board just to tell them that we were providing the Planning Board more information before they heard back from you. Since that time, we've submitted regrading, rock removal plans, retention wall plans, landscaping plans, erosion sediment control, stormwater runoff. We have provided essentially a fairly detailed site plan to you, and we're here before you tonight really for two things. I'll be succinct. One is a referral or recommendation really back to the Zoning Board that this board, the Planning Board, finds that Zero North Mountain Drive is a viable building lot, that there is a site plan that can be approved on this lot. Not all the details are fleshed out. That will come in time. So that is our first ask so that we can continue on at the Zoning Board. Then our second ask is that you set a public hearing for the site plan review so that hopefully we go to the Zoning Board, we continue and maybe even finish that process, hopefully, then come back to you and start the public hearing process on some of the details on the site plan. So without further ado, Patty Steinschneider is here and he will provide some more updated information on
So what we've dealt with in the past, you guys are aware of, the stormwater management's been submitted by the engineer. The vehicular safety is one of the concerns, and we've submitted a report on that, which shows the distance that you can see down the street in both directions over 180 feet. You can also see the driveway easily from that. We do need to remove some shrubs that are in the right of way, but they're not really in great shape anyway. Rock removal has been a major concern of this. We've had, we have the a report that we put in that talks about the process of removing the rock. We've reviewed it with 3 different contractors who have done this work for us in the past. We've gotten estimates from them for how many cubic yards they can take out, how many yards you can put into a truck, what size truck we're going to use, what size bucket and all that, how many trips then generate and what the pace of that would be. So I think that's pretty clear. So I don't think there are any issues. We've talked about size of the house. Obviously, that factors into stormwater management. Site stability. The fact is that we have a ledge rock site, so obviously the challenge is removing the rock. But it's not. I don't think there are any concerns with the site stability of this with a ledge rock site. It's not like we've got a marshy land and difficult to build on. Another concern that was identified, these 6 were on the list that the zoning board chair submitted in his letter, was landscaping. We are removing some large trees. The village has an aggressive requirement for replacement, which we have to comply with, and there'd be a landscaping plan that we will develop as part of the site plan review, which I think would address all of that. We do have the comments from the village's consulting planner and consulting engineer. None of those, all those are fairly ministerial, and we just have to take care of things like getting the seal and signature on the survey. But other than that, I think we're in good shape. So I concur with the attorney for the applicant that we would like to do is get a recommendation back that, from my understanding of it, that from a planning standpoint, buildability on the site, nothing to do with law, zoning, things like that, This board has determined that a house could be built on this site. It needs to meet the requirements of this board under a site plan review, and we would come back to you for that site plan review, ideally at your next meeting. Succinct enough?
Is that,
Anthony, seemed like the issue was whatever additional, passing the laugh test for the various things related to stormwater and water retention. Are you satisfied that this kind of passes?
Well, we had a number of comments. Probably the most significant is that they're proposing an infiltration practice, dry well essentially. The village uses the DEC design guidelines, which don't allow for infiltration practices in slopes greater than 15%. So the slopes are kind of half and half. It's partially in 15%, partially out. So I think to make sure that that's going to work correctly, we would need a little more in-depth look at the soils, and that infiltration will work. If infiltration doesn't work, then they need to do a detention gallery system that would release the water somewhere. And we would need to, then it becomes a bigger plan. Obviously, it was discussion of a drain line down the street. So something needs to be done on that front, I think, in terms of just making sure that that's going to work.
But to what the applicant is looking for, are you satisfied that one way or the other, one of these solutions or the other could be achieved, and therefore the determination that a house can be built on the site is
Yeah, I don't think any of these things, discount the possibility of a house being built on the site. I always say anything can be engineered. It's just the extent to which your board wants to see it shown on the plan, and if you're endorsing this plan or not, I'm not sure. But certainly those things would have to be worked out before site plan approval.
okay.
We did do borings. They did several borings on the site, test pits on the site, evaluated the soils. They got a perk of 14 inches in an hour. They dug down to 8 feet before hitting ledge in the area of where we're proposing the drainage, and the drainage is not at a slope of in an area that's not at a slope of over 15%. So I think
It is partial. It's at
Part-
least
a
half
corner
of
of
it
it,
is
maybe?
in the 15% slope.
okay,
Part of it.
part of it is fine, and that we can go back to Michael with that and see if he has a good way of making that work.
And how high are the retaining walls once the rock is removed? What would be the
So
highest?
most of anything that's in the front that the public sees is in the 2 to 4 foot kind of range. There's a potential retaining wall behind the site that could be, if all that, and this of course is the strange thing to say, all that turned out to be dirt, we'd be building a 10-foot high retaining wall. But the reality is we're pretty assured that we're not digging in dirt. We're going to be digging in rock, and this site, which I've never before been able to show now in 5 meetings, and finally I was educated about how to work my own computer successfully, so I know how to move it now. This is what you guys maybe remember. This is One Myrtle. And behind the house at One Myrtle, we had an 8-foot retaining wall. And when we started digging and revealing the rock, we realized that we could basically use the rock as the retainage, and we totally eliminated the retaining wall. So we're anticipating that that's something that would be possible. If we hit rock, we'll let the rock be exposed instead of taking it out. We'll use that as the retainage. And we did provide a detail that's a combination. If the rock only goes up this high and we need some backfill, how you build a dry stone retaining wall on top of rock ledge. So, and that's, of course, I'm thinking when we get to make this presentation on the basis of it being a site plan review, which we're not there yet. Need the ZBA first.
right.
Patty?
Yes, sir.
I walked the site this week, and I was a little concerned about the slope of the driveway. Do you have a number for what you think that's going to be?
Sure. We submitted that in that report that deals with the driveway the visibility and all that. We have a driveway that has one section, it's 12%, which is, we had it all worked out. The engineer that worked on it did it in accordance with the New York State DOT. So maximum in what's non-urban, 12%, the Village of Dobbs Ferry has approved 15% before. So we've got it at 12%, and we've got it blending nicely up to the area that's in front of the garage at about 2%. And then when we're coming down to the street, we're at 3%. We're flatter than the street in that section.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we discouraged 14% before, so I just want to check with Anthony. Is 12%, a reasonable number?
I mean, usually like 10% is kind of the number you want to max out on the driveways, but we've seen them steeper. I'm not sure if the code limits it or what's a maximum on it. I'm not 100% sure. John, is that?
Limited at 12.
Sorry?
12?
Limited at 12.
Oh, okay, so we're good there.
Okay.
All right. As a guy who slides into Judson Avenue when it's icy, I'm concerned about it.
Understood.
Am I allowed to comment here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just walking the site, it all slopes towards the northeast corner, basically. Yeah, I see you're looking around, Mr. Ped.
Oh, I didn't know where you were.
It's
Now
the
I see you
ghost
on the
of
screen.
it's the ghost of Steve. So, I mean, that you mentioned that you had no cross sections of the site. Is that? I'm just
Oh, no,
wondering.
we not only have them, we submitted them.
Oh, okay. Maybe I missed that.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm going, forward or backwards.
There were a number of cross sections in the site plan. I asked for an additional one through the infiltration system in front.
Maybe that was it. Yeah, that was it. I mean, it just walking the site, it all sort of drains to the northeast corner and then down the hill to the neighbor's pool. So, I'm just wondering if a water feature, rain garden or some kind of retention way in that northeast corner might be.
I think we did submit a landscape plan, right? Because I think we showed that both on the engineering plan and on the landscape plan. There's a seasonal pool, so to speak. It would be a low area that would fill in. Ideally, we could turn it into a nice wetland area.
That sounds just great. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
If you want to close the meeting and vote and approve it, that'd be.
no, not really.
Yeah, I know. That darn step with the
I
ZBA
know.
got us all there.
I know. Any other comments from the board or?
No, I think if there is a drainage solution, we don't, we're gonna, when we do site plan, we look at the site plan, we're gonna see what has to happen in that regard, and then you can decide whether it's affordable or not. But at this point, we just need to say whether it's possible, right?
Right, and it seems like it is.
Okay.
Okay.
So you will need to do something, right?
So does the board want to vote on a recommendation back to the zoning board this evening?
I think
Yes,
that'd be a.
Are there any particular recommendation items that you'd like me to add to the record? Or any concerns you would like the zoning board to take into consideration, or do you feel comfortable that the zoning board can finish their review and that the message or the recommendation to the zoning board would include that you feel comfortable that there's enough, there's the ability on the site to site a single-family home, and that, between the engineering that could go into the development of that single-family home, that it could be constructed in accordance with, New York State building code.
Remind me what the variances are?
Well, the variance is actually a lot area variance because of the steep slopes. The steep slopes require a deduction from the lot area.
So, well, it sounds like you have it written out there that we can move forward.
All right, so,
So do we need to vote on that?
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
all right. I move we accept the recommendation from
Well, why doesn't the board vote on, to recommend that the zoning board continue processing the application?
That's what I recommend.
That's the motion, okay. Second?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Good, thank you.
And I'm gonna put together, I'll put together a memo, a draft memo. I'll send it to you, Stephen, just to make sure it reflects correctly, and then I'll send that over.
Okay, good, thank you.
The zoning board has ever said
Yeah.
something to us.
Right.
Is it viable?
We could have a second motion for site plan public hearing for the next planning board meeting.
I don't think,
It seems premature.
Yeah.
We need to see a viable drainage plan.
Well, we'll certainly provide that as part of the public hearing, part of the public hearing.
you need to get your
process,
zoning board approvals first, so. Pam, what do you think?
but I'm just trying to keep our process moving.
Yeah.
Understandably, the zoning board might take a month or two, but if we if we're successful next week, then we don't want to miss a meeting.
Well, I mean,
I think you have issues, there are issues that have to be addressed, right? And that would be part of a continued pre-submission. So
Yeah, it
that,
wouldn't go to public
I'm
hearing.
not sure a public hearing is warranted just yet, but I think if you get your variances, certainly come to this board on a pre.
Then we'd have to come back to this board, get the public hearing, open the public hearing. The first available meeting after the case.
But the board, but this board may not be satisfied that they have everything to call a public hearing.
I guess that's my question. Are you satisfied this evening or feel comfortable enough?
You've got an engineer's storm drainage report, you've got drawings, you've got erosion, you've got flow plan. And really, you've got everything, so all of those things have been addressed. The question, and I'm sure that between Anthony and Michael, they can get that.
I think, well, I mean, I still have a number of items in my memo that said, for example, lighting plan needs to be provided, a planting plan, the specific, what you're planning to do with the trees. Anthony still has issues with the stormwater. I mentioned about the bald eagle consultation with New York State DEC. So I think there's a lot of documents that still probably need to be compiled and submitted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for our green light for the zoning board.
You're welcome.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda, item number 2, 111 Bel Air Drive, continuation of pre-submission conference for proposed addition and renovation to a single-family home.
Okay, I might need some help here, but let me see if I can still work. There's a problem.
Neil, if, we're looking for, Neil, if you can just present the new information that was,
Yeah, I
that'd be
realize
great.
you have it tight. Ah, crap. Yeah, so just the new stuff. Again, I'm Niall Kane. I'm representing Gabrielle DeBerry and Alice Child. Project is 111 Bel Air Street. And so you're aware this is the proposal. This portion here is an addition. We're proposing a fairly extensive alteration to the existing house with an addition on this side, 2.5-story addition on this side, an addition above the garage, and an extensive redo of the house and terracing on the back and so forth. Trying to do that, explain that expeditiously. See the side of the house facing west and north. And this is an elevation of the house, this the south side of the house. and we've changed this drawing just a little bit, or added to it, I should say, just showing the little retaining wall at the extended driveway here, and showing that what we're proposing for planting, and in fact, you know, that driveway will be screened more appropriately than it is now, even with the extended, extended driveway. You recall that as part of this project, we are also legalizing an existing retaining wall that was built on top of, built on top of an existing stone retaining wall. We're now proposing to rebuild that wall, set it back from the stone retaining wall to the west, and we're planting creating a shelf and planting within that step, I should say. And the existing fence will remain as is and be relocated. And then there's a portion here where, you recall, it was built too high, and again, we're stepping that back down and pressing it, pushing it back into the property. The owners did present this to the neighbor to the west, and she in turn has sent in a letter of support for the project, which you should have. I have a copy of it if you need it. Also submitted a letter from the contractor who did the work, certifying that the fill is clean fill that he used for the project. That was another concern that you had the last time we were here. We were also, remember, sorry, the engineer, village engineer, forgot your name for a second. You pointed out that perhaps we'd have to do a steep slope analysis or deduct steep slope for the grade that existed prior to this fill that was added. And what we've done is we analyzed that slope. It's an average of 14% from the back of the existing building to the existing, the stone retaining wall, the original stone retaining wall. And the way the calculations work, we can allocate 1,192 square feet of area. We can make the assumption that that was 15 to 25% grade. It was almost certainly less than that, but nevertheless, we're going to devote all of that to that original grade, which will in fact preclude ever adding any additional building area to the site. And that this, just to clarify, the 1192 area, it's kind of bouncing around, but there's a dotted line here that shows the extent. So it's virtually the entire extent of that fill area, and the portion around the tree was not filled because that's that existing beautiful sycamore tree. And again, this site plan shows the planting along that edge, which will be a big improvement. There's no question about it. And this is the relocated retaining wall along this line. And this is existing, but of course this edge of that wall at the corner is being pulled back as well. Other aspects, it's all as previously proposed. We added a planting plan, a planting schedule, I should say, down here for the proposed planting. We are proposing significant planting on this side just to create sort of a buffer from that edge. Although this addition is, within the required setback, it is still close to the adjacent property, so we're going to make sure it's screened properly, and that was illustrated in that elevation that I showed you as well. I do want to point out also, and you probably, I believe you all visited the site, but I just showed a little clarification that this portion here is the existing house, the main body of the existing house, and this little piece here is actually just a little, I believe, kitchen addition that was done who knows when, but all of which is to say that the main portion of the house is actually not complies with current zoning. It's just this little piece that was added, whenever it was added, that is within the side yard setback. So it's not as restrictive as it seems, I guess, in plan is what, sorry, excuse me. This is the section through the grade, which again the engineer asked for, showing this wall step back with the planting here.
So the dash line that you're showing underneath the level line. That was the assumption you used for the steep slope calculation?
Exactly, and this is, you know, certainly this wall was, you know, the grade we know was up to here, just, you know, 4 inches or so
Sort of
below
a
the
worst
existing
case.
wall. And this we're not changing, really, this is existing grade. Again, it's an average, and we're just saying, okay, it could be as much as 25%, but we're still devoting all that 15 to 25% to what is reasonably exceeds, frankly, the existing steep slope. And this again shows the sections, just again, this existing wall here, pulling it back. Basically, this, all these little sections are various cuts through that retaining wall condition. We did add, just to go through the exercise, also the sky exposure plane at the west side and west and east side of the house, which of course complies, although this is so deep, I thought I would better verify that that's the case. Again, as far as the scale of the house, it's commensurate with similar houses, you know, in the neighborhood, scale of the proposed house. I would also point out that building code requires that the balcony, any raised balcony is considered building area. So all this portion here, which was about 500 and some, I have it written down, 532 square feet, could conceivably be a 2.5-story bulk of the house, if you get what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we're not, you know, maxing out the buildable area of this lot by any means. That's just larger, what I showed you before. And it also shows the section in this high portion of the 108 Bel Air. And I pointed this out before, but it's worth pointing out again, we're keeping the house as low as practical. In fact, the street elevation is 21 feet 9 inches to the top of the house from the average street grade. I did make a little error on the sky exposure plane last time. I read the code as saying that you take the average slope along the lot line and then apply that to the house. In fact, you take the average slope from the corners of the house and use that as the starting point for your sky exposure plane, which actually helps us. So you can see here the sky exposure plane in the front, where it's 15.7 feet, is fine. This one is just grazing the gutter, and that's at the midpoint, I should say, sorry. And then at the very end, we do have something that is slightly within, at that very southwest corner, but I would argue that this is kind of a aberrant, if that's the right word, condition, because the grades drop so low at that southwest corner of the house. And the code actually speaks to that. If you read the code, it says you can make, you can take that into account when looking at sky exposure plane conditions. The other thing I'd point out is that sky exposure plane does allow certain obstructions, like a dormer. It's as much as 7 feet or 33% of the elevation, so that it's not a dormer, but it certainly would fall within that, reasonably within that sort of allowance. This is a view of the, I can't see it with my glasses. This is just an illustration of what I was saying before, that the main body of this house is actually back, 10 feet plus average. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it does comply with code. And this is the little kitchen addition, which in plan kind of makes it look like a lot of the house is closer than it really is. And this is sort of the view through to the river there from the adjacent, forgotten the address, but the house across the street. And this shows just a massing model of the house that we're proposing and retaining that view. This is the big sycamore tree here. And this is just, maybe an illustration of the screening we're going to proposing here along that side of the house. This is just to say, I think Gabriel was invited into the adjacent house, and we took a picture from the kitchen, which just shows that this is the side of the garage as is, and we're keeping that plane and building up. And that porch, this little balcony area, in fact, is going to recede because we're taking it down and we're pushing it back further, so you won't see as much of that porch from this vantage point. And of course, there's a tree that was illustrated fairly accurately in the elevation that we. This is another view of, from across the street. And again, this is the massing model of the proposed house, I should say. And showing some planting. Side, whoops. And these plans, all of which, this is what you've seen before, nothing has changed. This is proposing exactly the same thing as before. Yeah, the only change was that existing retaining wall in the back, which I think is, again, is a big improvement that the neighbor concurs with. So some notes here, things that I wanted, just the new things I wanted to point out. Yeah, I think I've, oh, the other thing was the stormwater, the perk test issue. It is extremely difficult to get any equipment to the back to do this perk test properly, and I have made what I think is a reasonable assumption of the perk test, and we could certainly, if it varies a little bit, plus or minus, not going to make that much difference to our infiltrator design. And we can increase a bit more gravel, a bit less gravel. So we request that we get approval without, we actually got a proposal very expensive to go back there and dig. Get the equipment back there. To do it properly, you have to dig down 6 feet, large area, 6 feet deep, 7 feet deep, and then from that point do the perk test. So it's much easier to do it, needless to say, once we get some equipment back there. And I've done it that way before. I've had approval, that sort of contingent approval. It seems reasonable. I would suggest that it is reasonable.
Yeah.
Reasonable request.
Well, while you're talking about that, Anthony, that was appeared to be one of the primary concern in your memo.
Yeah, the main concern is that it appears like the entire house would be tributary to the Coltex system. So we questioned the sizing on it. And without having a perk test, we really don't know, how that system's gonna work, with the slopes, the steep slopes there. So that's kind of a question. There was a statement to leave it to construction. It would have to be left to, at best, prior to building permit issuance. Valerie and I were just looking at the submission. For some reason, we were sent 2 sheets that were revised, but they didn't have like the step back wall, and I think you mentioned adding some Coltec units, so I'm not sure what you ended up with.
No, I did. You know what?
It's on the website, actually, we noticed, but,
That's.
yeah. I see that now, that looks.
Yeah, I mean, as it stands now, I mean, just to.
Did you add Coltec units to you
At
still have 4?
some point we did, but we did because you pointed out you really wanted to see us dealing with all the stormwater from the
Right,
new
how
house.
many Coltec units?
So we have 7.
There's 7.
Large
Okay,
XL
okay.
size. 330 XL is, I think, is the spec on it.
Right.
And, easy enough to add another one, not near the sycamore tree, but, double them, to some degree. There's plenty of room there.
Well, we have approved sites with conditional, conditions like that to do perk tests. So the thing is, if it's found that it can't handle the infiltration, there has to be another solution. And, so it could, it's critical to the project, especially expanding the building. So it's really the board's call. But, we could certainly deal with it during building permit, but it could drastically change. If the site plan then has to change, quite a bit, it could be enough of a change to come back for an amendment, but,
It's not, I mean, I would say, again, there's enough room. I mean, we could do 50% more infiltrators there. We could fit in. And it's just, conservative number that we, just based on my history of soils, looking at soils and so forth.
and and we should, there's the slope issue as well. I think that has to be confirmed, I guess, by the building department, in terms of what slope that's going to be considered. It's right there on the borderline of that 15% we were talking about in the last the last meeting, so, I think it definitely needs more of a look, in terms of engineering, but in terms of making it conditional, that would be up to the board.
Right, so this particular project still needs a public hearing associated with it, so there is a little bit more time.
So what happens if it turns in, if it's raw rock down there and it doesn't perk and you've torn the house open?
Well,
What
we
happens
can't
then?
let it get to that point. It would have to be a system, it would have to be engineered and reviewed and approved before a building permit is issued. That
So
would
you're gonna have to
be-
do those perk tests
Yeah.
by hand or something anyway, right?
Yeah, we could probably get it done. It's just, I can't imagine any issue where we would have to, I don't know, pump water up or something. I mean, it just doesn't, but.
You
Yeah,
you can't make the assumption that
Yeah,
it's gonna work.
I mean, it's-
You just can't do that.
So what's the condition now? I mean, does it, like, existing
Well,
conditions
it's,
now?
we haven't dug up to see what kind of infiltrations, dry well system may exist, but there's no water runoff issue there, and you would think there would be, given the slope of the
Right.
site.
Yeah,
You know,
down
I
the
would think
hill.
there would be some
Right.
issue if it wasn't mitigated properly.
So the
I
amount
think
that
the
you're
neighbors would let you
adding,
know.
so the amount of square footage that you're adding, how does that necessarily impact?
Well,
How
and the
much
fact of the matter is
more?
we're not adding, I mean, we're making this entire existing driveway, we're changing it to pervious surface. So
Right.
we're not really, I mean, this is, and actually here is all hardscape, so we're not adding that much impervious surface. And
Right.
it's not an issue now, so it seems highly unlikely it would be an issue. But
Right,
we can, for the con, see if we can try it. It's just, when the guy said, there's no way I'm getting down there, it's gonna cost you thousands of dollars just to
Right.
get the perk test done. It just obviously asking for obvious reasons.
Well, is there anything, I think, I would consider calling for a public hearing in our next meeting.
yes.
I move we have a public hearing in our next meeting, the, whatever it would be, March meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
February.
And earlier tonight, Alan and Steve, you were talking about potentially changing the time of the meeting. Did you want to have that discussion now, or do you?
We don't know what the schedule looks like next month.
No.
We'll do-
Well, I mean, clearly, we're gonna have this many,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
all these.
I mean, it seems like with our new combined agendas, right, it makes sense to start earlier.
I mean, if you want to start at 7, would that work for you, Laura?
Yeah, that would work.
That would be better. I mean, it's really hard for me to get here at 6:30.
Yeah,
So maybe
Yeah,
7.
7 would be better.
let's try 7, see how
Okay.
that works. Well, anyway,
Okay.
Can I add one thing here?
Yes, Steve?
Niall, I want you to look at the viewing platform. Look at the viewing platform number 70.
I looked at the viewing platform, there wasn't one right adjacent to the site. There that's one of the first things I did for sort of,
Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
double check unless, double check, you said that.
not yet.
There
I
wasn't
can't
one,
quite tell, looking at the, at the viewing platform map, exactly where number 70 and number 68 are,
I did
but it would
double-
be good, I think it would be good to address that.
I'll check it again, but I did look at it, and I will just say where those are, or whatever, as, on the public hearing.
Great,
Just so that
thanks.
that are-
Right,
Thank you.
And please come up with a solution for Anthony's concerns for for the stormwater management.
I think let's go ahead and have the guy, even though it's a little expensive right now, just get it done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need to vote on the.
Yeah, that always stopped us.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Everybody voted yes, right?
Well, I don't think we finished.
We didn't finish.
I move that we call for a public hearing at our next meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, I only said yes.
You? Night?
Yep.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Item number 3 on our agenda, 120 South Lawn Avenue, pre-submission conference for proposed replacement of railroad retaining wall on property.
Good evening, Chairman,
Good evening.
board members. My name is Robert Watkins, representing the applicant. Don't want to bore you guys, but This is a 4-foot high timber railroad retaining wall that he initially started to repair, but he got a stop work order. So we submitted plans and, and pictures showing what the existing is. It's a direct replacement of something that was existing there. So nothing new in terms of the area and the location of all the members, of all the timber members. And, we gave the detailed sediment and erosion control, the proper structural detail for how to rebuild the retaining wall, and a profile just to give you just a quick view of what it was. And, that's basically what we have.
Well, it seems like it should be pretty straightforward.
Yes, it is. It is.
Seems like.
Do we have any engineering or, why was it stopped, actually? What part of the code?
Because there's no permit. They were doing this job without a permit.
Exactly.
Right.
Right, but it doesn't have to be above a certain, amount of volume of dirt that's being moved
No,
or
you need a
something like
permit,
that?
period, if it's over a 30-inch retaining wall.
Oh, I see, okay.
And they did several retaining walls. There's one at the driveway, there's one at the back of the driveway.
But these are all replacements of existing walls?
Yes, which in our design guidelines don't meet our design guidelines,
I see,
because you can't have railroad type walls in our design guidelines.
I see.
But they're done already, so.
Any questions?
The plan, I think maybe the section seemed to indicate like some walls that were over 4 feet.
Yes,
Maybe
yes,
it wasn't
yes.
clear, and it wasn't really clear to what extent the walls are being replaced, all the walls, maybe that could be marked out better, but if there are any walls that are over 4 feet, I guess
Yes.
the question then comes up.
Only one set of walls
4
was
foot
over
6.
4 feet.
4'6" or something.
Thought it was maybe even more than
I'm
that.
looking at the,
Yeah.
What's the issue when you get above 4 feet?
Usually over 4 feet, the village wants to see engineered walls, calculations and an engineering drawing for the wall. So, the question then comes up if it's a replacement or repair, and if it's a full rebuild of the wall. And again,
Definitely can't be classified as a repair.
so if it's a
The whole
rebuild,
wall's
then they could put back retaining, railroad tie? That's a question, I guess. And that might be, I don't know, how that might get interpreted, but if it's over 4 feet, it really should have an engineered, look at it.
Would you guys like me to provide one for this particular, for anything over 4 feet?
Yeah, I think we'd have to, verify that to what extent the walls are over 4 feet.
We only have one set of walls that are, well, actually, because the driveway is sloping all the way up, you're gonna get,
Yeah, it's like, I think it's borderline.
yes,
You
it's
have-
borderline.
And there's quite a, there's a surcharge behind the walls. In other words,
Exactly.
there's a slope behind the
Yes.
walls. It would be better, to have, an engineer's,
All right, not a problem,
certification on that, I would think.
not a problem.
Okay.
What's the status of the project?
When I stopped at the driveway, retaining walls were essentially done.
Okay,
The back walls were half done. I don't know if they've been finished since.
No,
So the
Not
back
nice.
wall was half done.
okay,
It
so,
was a stepped wall in the back, if I remember right?
yes.
Yeah.
Well,
So I think this board has a couple of different decisions to make. One, for AHRB, it will clearly need AHRB approval because it technically doesn't meet the design guidelines, although retaining walls are exempt from AHRB. And then the second, the board can decide whether you want to move forward with a public hearing on site plan or whether you want to waive site plan and just have the engineering and building department finish up the review of the wall. Either way, it's coming back next week.
Can't hurt to get the engineer certification. That would make everyone at least comfortable.
And I would say, you know, you don't necessarily need the engineering certification for this board's approval, but you need it for the building department to release the building permit.
Yes.
Then maybe we
We
could,
can waive site.
we could move forward at our next meeting.
So are you suggesting that the engineering approval is on this design with the timber?
No, she's saying that the certification, the engineering certification report shouldn't stop the building department from approving and granting a permit.
Oh, but the engineer could, you know, certify that that design is
Yes.
adequate.
Are you
The timber
comfortable with
design.
that design?
Yes, that's
Or
what
is the
she's
board
saying,
gonna
if
wanna
you
see a
guys are
different design?
comfortable with that.
I don't think so, personally, but.
I'm comfortable. We comfortable?
Well, I think willing to waive site plan as long as Anthony and the building department is happy with the engineering report.
I agree.
Yeah, I definitely.
Okay,
You too.
me too.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to that effect?
Yes.
We waive site plan approval? I move that we waive site plan approval.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And then are we having this come back for AHRB because it doesn't meet the design guidelines?
I think if it's already there.
Right,
and
it
it's-
was-
Yeah.
And it's gonna be approved by the engineer, that's the question I was asking.
I mean, here, literally, under the current rules, we couldn't build this kind of wall, right? So our review would mean if we don't like it, tear it literally all out,
Correct.
all the work that's been done.
And they were just replacing what was already there.
Yes,
Yeah, so
It was railroad tie before.
yes.
Yeah, I think it's
I-
unnecessary.
I do too.
Not necessary. No.
So what we would do is get the engineer to approve this design with this wood structure, and he would come back at the next meeting, or he
No,
doesn't
just
need
to the satisfaction
No.
of
Goes to the building.
For the village.
building department.
Okay,
Village.
fine, yeah, I think that, I approve.
And then for the record, the retaining wall is an exemption underneath the AHRB, and because the AHRB also viewed this as a replacement of what's already existing there, that it doesn't need AHRB.
Right,
Correct.
good. Good.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 4 on our agenda, 2 Osceola Avenue, pre-submission conference for proposed interior and exterior alterations, second floor dormer addition and exterior deck replacement. Nobody's moving.
Oh, they're online.
Is there somebody online? Oh, I see him. That are,
Good evening. This is Nick Faustini. I'm an architect for the application. Hello.
good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, how are you? Sorry I couldn't join you tonight at Village Hall, but hopefully we can present and show our project to you now. If you'd like, I can go over the presentation. Shall I share my screen or?
Please.
Yes.
So please let us know when you can see our screen.
We can see it.
We can see it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So, so the application includes interior alterations as well as exterior alterations to an existing single-family home. It's located at 2 Osceola Avenue. The property is approximately 50,000 square feet, half of which is covered with a pond. The house, we were looking to really somewhat modernize the house, give it different exterior appearance, and replace windows, portions of the roof area, and an existing wood deck. So what we're looking at here is the site plan, and I'm just going to zoom in on it. We're proposing filling in some areas, some planter areas, to make the driveway a little bit more maneuverable. So this hatch mark here, if you can see my pointer, that's filling in an existing lawn area with more cobblestone, and this little area here as well. We are proposing a new portico for the front entrance, a roof covering over the garage area, and a dormer addition at the second floor level at the rear of the house. We are also proposing to replace the existing wood deck on this side of the house. It's located at the first floor level. You can see these dashed lines, they're somewhat curved. That's the existing shape of the deck, and I'll zoom out to look at the existing floor plans. This is the location of the property, the pond on the property, a 200-foot buffer. It's in a one-family 2 district located right here. This is an aerial view of this site. Again, the pond, our subject property. And I'll zoom down. We are located, a significant part of the site's located in the 500-year floodplain. And this is the wetland map, basically showing the North Brook Stream coming through, and our pond is in this area. So a lot of the work that we're proposing is just a little expansion of the driveway on this side, filling in the planter here, and then just changing the existing roof a little bit to just modernize the appearance. We have some photos also that are included in the package, streetscape photos along Osceola Avenue. This is the front of the existing house. That small area of expanded driveway is going to be in this area here, and the planter in the background here. This is a view of the pond from Osceola Avenue. Again, another image of the pond. This is the deck that we're proposing to replace. There's an existing deck in the distance here that we are just going to change. These show all the angled views. Some more house photos. We were going to propose a new front portico over this existing stoop, and then a new roof, gable roof, just to emphasize the front of the house a little bit more, or the entry a little bit more. We're also proposing some window changes and siding changes as part of the project. On this side of the house, we are proposing a roof, just a roof overhang, approximately 3 feet, similar to the overhang you see here, just over the garage area. On this side of the house, currently as part of this phase, we aren't proposing any work, but you will see a future pool on our site plan. That future pool, it wasn't planned for this phase. We just wanted to present it to you as something that we intend to do in the future, would take place in this area here. There's an existing paved court that will be removed, and the pool would be placed in this general area. And I can go back to the site plan to show you where that might be. We also have another view of the house, the deck in this area to be replaced. The existing deck is really right up against the pond, so it's very close to the edge of the pond. And in some cases going to stay that way, and in some cases it'll further back, so closer to the house. Another view of the house, another view of the deck from the rear of the property, and another view of the rear of the house. The dormer that we're proposing is on this roof plane. It's not expanding the footprint of the house. It's just basically lifting up the roof plane to allow for a master bath and laundry room addition. Zoom out and I'll go to the photos. We included some erosion control details, site details, sky exposure planes. The property is substantial, so we're well within the envelope. This is an existing foundation plan showing the dashed line of the existing deck to be replaced. This is the shape of the existing deck, kind of like a cloud-like footprint. existing second floor plans, roof plan, existing elevations, uh, proposed foundation plan showing the new deck and new footings to support that deck. Again, just going with straight lines for the deck. The footprint of the house didn't fit on one page, so you'll see on the next page where we continue the deck. And then also the portico addition would be here. The second floor master bath and laundry room addition. I can zoom in if you'd like. So this is that area where we're dormering the back of the house over the existing footprint of the house. Roof plan. This is the new gable roof to emphasize the entrance. Shed dormer in the back. The new full floor plan of the deck showing the footings, and this line represents the edge of the pond. And this is the an on-top view of that deck. This is the proposed front elevation. As I was mentioning earlier, we're proposing a new portico with a gable roof, and then we're proposing an overbuilt roof with gable appearance also over the existing roof here. We are changing some of the windows to allow for this portico to fit in here. All of the windows will be replaced with new windows in kind, casement, black style windows. We currently have cedar siding on the house. This drawing is proposing hardy panel or hardy board. There's been some rethinking of that. We may just stick with the cedar and just paint the cedar a different color. And then we're also proposing black metal roofing, standing seam metal roofing along the front here just to give the house a little bit more flair. This is the portico addition that I mentioned earlier. Again, this is the side of the house, the pond side, the new railing over the deck with horizontal balusters. This is the new overbuilt roof from the side. Zoom out. We have the rear of the house. Not much of the volume is actually changing here, with the exception of the dormer addition that you see here. And this is that new metal roof over the garage door opening. And again, the portico. Some section details. Window schedule, just electrical drawings. And that is it for the architectural drawings. I noticed in the memos there was comments about a landscaping plan being required. We did actually prepare a landscaping plan. I'm not sure what happened. I can't share that with you, so I'll just pull it up here. We can formally submit it. Also, my apologies, I thought it was submitted, but we can get this to you right away. Dan Sherman prepared a landscape plan, again, showing the areas that are being filled in with cobblestone where there was previously grass or a planter. He had proposed a selection of plantings along the front of the house, along the pond, and along the street. And there was also a comment in the memo about providing an as-built survey. So we have that here as well. And again, I can formally submit this. This shows the existing driveway, the existing house footprint, the existing deck, pond, and the perimeter of the property. I think I just wanted to mention, I saw some comments related to the pool and stormwater management. The pool, and our intent at this point was just to show it for a future phase, not really to be the part of this current phase of the project. So I'm not sure how that would affect the continuation of meetings going forward, if it should be removed from the application at this time, or it's beneficial to continue to include it at this time. So I can answer any questions. or you
So
may
I'm
have?
I'm unclear on where we are with the stormwater management issue, especially with the pond right there. I think there may be some
Right.
additional challenges.
So, showing the pool on the site plan now, if it's gonna get approved with a pool shown, you should also show how the stormwater is gonna be handled.
Okay,
There is a large pond there. That could be incorporated, obviously, into any calculation or, in terms of picking up the runoff, you know. So that's what I would do. That's how I would look at it. But it
Sure.
would have to be accounted for. So if the board's going to approve a plan with the pool in place, then that has to be accounted for. The other small areas technically also do need stormwater, mitigation. Again, if the whole site is looked at as a whole, and you'd have to kind of look at it as if there's a restricted discharge on that pond, does the pond then hold that water back? If it still goes out at the same rate. Because if the pond wasn't there, they would have to do dry wells.
Right.
Or something like that.
okay. So if we eliminate the pool at this time, would we still, I think there's approximately 400 square feet of new paved area. Would that still require stormwater management design at this time?
Yeah, and there's a simplified approach when you're under 400 square feet. There's a methodology that the village uses just to do a quick sizing, and there's ways to mitigate that other than a dry well. It could be, I don't know if you said it was a cobblestone. If those could be pervious or open jointed cobbles where that would solve the problem. You could even incorporate it into the sub-base material with enough gravel sub-base, kind of hold the stormwater, just kind of offset that. But
Okay.
yeah.
Also, can you tell me how you calculated, or how in this zone, the maximum height of the eaves is calculated? Because there's both a number in the table and there's also a prevailing height of the existing neighboring houses, isn't that right?
We have the number in the table here.
Right, I was looking at that.
Okay. And you're saying there's another number on the plans? That,
Well, I guess you're not actually approaching the allowed.
sorry, was it-
35 feet, I guess?
yes,
Existing
it's,
is, you're not really
35.
changing, right, and you're at
No.
20. Go ahead.
we are minimally changing the height just because of that overbuilt roof, on the front. It actually is, it's approximately, a little bit less than a foot higher than the existing roof. So I'll just go to that image quickly.
But you're still below
It was still well below, yeah.
below the 35 feet.
So that it's this difference here. We're following the existing roof line and it's just setting us off a little bit higher than the existing roof. And that's what the difference is between the existing max ridge heights. The proposed median is taken to the middle of the roof, and then the eave heights are pretty much remaining the same.
And what is the buffering requirement for doesn't it vary in New York State depending on the classification of the stream? Do we know what?
Right, so I raised a question about whether there's an encroachment on the wetlands area. It's not clear on the site plan. It looks like you're potentially encroaching onto the wetlands.
Well, with respect to the deck is built right up to the edge of the existing pond,
Yes,
currently today.
right.
And most of the replacement would remain in generally the same area right up to the edge of the pond. The pool area, if to your colleague's question about the buffer area, the pool area could be perceived as also within buffer area, of course. So we'd have to, I guess, determine what type of buffer is required for this type of pond. That I need to talk to our engineer about to see if anything needs to be done just because of the proximity to the pond area.
Yeah, because I think depending on the classification of the stream, there's either a 50-foot or 100-foot buffer. And I don't know how the pond fits into that kind of buffering calculation either. I mean, I don't know if it's a problem or not. The existing deck is already at the edge of the pond, but it would be good to clarify that.
Okay, we can do that.
Well, I don't think your zoning code doesn't have a buffer for wetlands or for streams.
But isn't it a state?
No. The state has a 100-foot buffer for state designated wetlands, but this is not a state designated wetland, but it clearly is
Okay.
identified as a wetland. So therefore, if it does encroach, there potentially, if it is a federal wetland, and that's the next thing we'd have to take a look at, then that would require, and it's encroaching actually in the wetland area, then it would require a permit from the Army Corps. If this is just, if it's not a federal or state designated wetland, your zoning code does talk about not encroaching into wetland areas, and so you might want to look for some sort of mitigation.
Doesn't the stream, and the stream is not,
The stream could be classified under DEC,
Yeah.
and possibly, need a permit. It depends on the classification.
Yeah.
Stream, it's,
Right, if it goes into the stream, there's not a buffer.
yeah, usually it's, disturbance of the banks or, fill or, obviously into the stream, and the pond would be part of that stream. So the thing to do maybe, if they could, and we could do the same thing, is just look on the DEC environmental mapper, and it'll tell you what the classification of that stream is. I doubt this is a state-regulated wetland, but it'll tell you that also, and it'll tell you what kind of permit might be needed. For what types of work you would need a permit in that classification.
okay,
So maybe that's something the applicant can do
yeah.
prior to the next submission.
Okay.
Anything else?
There was a comment from the planning memo about the application being over the sliding scale impervious surfaces.
Yes.
And that really is, sorry, zooming in here, that really is related to the pool. So once the pool is removed from the application, it's in compliance. So I think maybe for that reason, we may just consider the pool phase 2 and take it off the application because the client is anxious to move forward and probably doesn't want to go to the zoning board at this time. Unless you recommend otherwise, but that's my thoughts on it at this point.
Any other comments from the board or others? I would like to move that we call for the public hearing at our next meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Thank you, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
You too.
Item number 5 on our agenda, 143 Ashford Avenue, pre-submission conference for proposed alterations and additions to home. 143 Ashford. Going once, going twice. Anybody?
Is somebody online? Okay.
Okay. Darn.
You're not fast enough.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, members of the board. My name is David Orango. I am working for Mr. RFA and Associates. We represent Mrs. Fishhop for 143 Ashford Avenue. If you allow me to share my screen.
Please.
Okay. Share screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now this is we represent here. This is the vicinity map. What is the location of the site we have here, and then have the location of the map. We present a finished schedule for the new addition we try to do. The addition is an existing attic. We are doing like interior alterations in the attic and also for a second floor. Let me show you in the floor plans what is the alteration we have. This is the existing plans. This is the existing elevations, and this is we planning to do like an addition in the second floor. I don't know if you see my cursor over there. Be moving around.
Yes.
Okay. In the second floor, we have this alteration for the kitchen. And the first floor, we're planning to put in a column to support the new addition there. And we're planning to do, move the wall or make the bedroom a little bit smaller and enlarge the living space. And the attic, we're planning to do like a new bathroom, and a new office because Mrs. Fishhop needed more space. Her family started growing up and they need that space. We represent, the new elevations with creating the new dormer, and we make the section to showing, what is the details has for the eave and also for the soffit. And we did also the study for the sky exposure plan, like we demonstrate, the alteration, minimal change, anything, because it's existing, not conforming. We have this neighbor photo study with the neighbor around. And also we provide, the landscaping plan. We don't change anything. We documenting what is the species now, and we don't touch anything there. It's only with the things we're doing is only in the building itself. Our exterior is not touching. Only we needed to fix a little thing here for a retaining wall because it's a little garden wall because it's an area is like an uneven. We try to make like the things more flat for the driveway, but it's still the same spot. We don't increase any on impervious surface. It's only to make the things a little bit more flatter, to conforming with the garage driveway. And we have the site plan, all the calculations, pretty much all the things is an existing not conforming. We increasing, more square footage around the footing, the footprint. And this is the street landscape, like we showed the addition. We changed the siding for a new material, but the colors and all the specifications for windows, columns, trims, corner boards, everything is in the finished schedule for through the request of the member of the board for the ARB. If you have any questions.
Well, I have a comment about just
Yes.
the style of the new dormer compared to the streetscape of the other houses next to it. It doesn't really fit in, I don't believe. I wish I could see something that's a little bit more within the realm of the other homes, because it looks like it was just added on. Does that make sense? On the dormer?
You mean?
In other words, the extension, the new addition on the attic floor, it loses the kind of the quaintness of the house because all the other houses on that strip all have the same pitch for the roof, and then the new addition kind of adds wings to it. So it doesn't it's not as attractive. Does that make sense?
It does, I agree. Would it be possible to look for an alternate solution to the attic space?
To be a
We
little
can
more,
make, we
to be a
can
little
dig it
more-
up something, but I think the only solution is raise the roof, in the same pitch we have now.
I'm thinking like if you can still raise the roof, but possibly maybe come up with a different ridge or, configuration so that you can maintain the interior space that you're looking for, but not necessarily creating wings on the existing pitch that's there. That makes sense.
We can explore the idea, but geometrically speaking, for make that thing and keep it, make it the same slope or similar slope we have now, we needed to rise it up. Basically, erase the roof we have now and rise it up, the things until the top of that one. I don't know if that affect a little bit more the sky exposure plan, because now we have a very tall roof. No? Because if you rise it up.
I'm just wondering if you can reconsider redesigning it so it's a little bit more aesthetically consistent with the other houses on the streetscape.
We can explore the idea. Yes, we can try to come out with another design of solution of that.
Is there a roof, I mean, I think maybe part of the solution would just be how far, I'm looking for a roof plan. Oh, here I see it. I mean, I don't know what I was going to suggest, but you're already setting it back was, depending on how far the size of the new dormer are set back from the primary facade would have some impact on what I think Laura's talking about. Or if the vertical walls of that dormer were also set back and were not in the same plane as the two existing sidewalls.
And I'm a little bit lost. Do you think, not because the dormer is a little bit back from the front of the wall, from the edges of the walls, it's a little bit, yeah.
But I'm thinking also on the east and west elevations on the sides, whether or not if the dormer were pulled in, if the scale of the dormer was.
Oh, you say you want to make the dormer a little bit, shrinking the space inside.
Yeah, if it was a little bit narrower, it's true, you would lose a little bit of space inside.
Because the addition is a little bit, the building itself is a little bit tiny. Yeah. It's we can explore the idea and see how much space we can consume from the inside space. We can try to do that one, and we can, demonstrate graphically if we can do that. Because one of the problems is in the right side of the building, if you see the stairs, because that wall is flush with the existing wall there. I don't know if I can go inside a little there, because that encroach the stair for the second to the third.
Right.
I need to, and the existing second floor is a little bit tighter in this area.
I don't know how high he is already.
Oh.
See.
But definitely we can explore the idea. It's nothing we can say no. We can explore the idea and come out with a solution. Maybe the board can check it out and see if it's okay or not. But yes, we can work it out.
As I understand it, the sky exposure plane is not a hard rule. It's functionally a design guideline.
None of the houses in this street work. It's not relevant to this.
But the height of the total height of the building is, and I'm not seeing that here. So you may have room to go up.
Like if you look at the house, if you're looking at your streetscape in the house, second to the left, the first house, the pink, kind of looks like a pinkish house. I mean, that has a different pitch on it, but it's still could be possibly an option as far as a design to kind of fit in. You know what I'm saying? Like it has a rhythm and they all, it's possible that that style could somehow work for you there. I don't know. I mean, you have to play with it.
But the dormer they have there is a later, like a doggy dormer. I presume the space inside is not that big.
Yes, tiny.
It's a tiny space,
Right,
and
right. Mhm.
and that one, and also the scale of the drawing, because the houses are going up in the hill, and the pink one is lower than the other ones, and maybe you see the house looks like a little shorter, but it's because it's in the grade, it's in the lower spot.
No, I'm talking about the actual style of it.
But but that one is, inside of that dormer is the space is very not and well because it's only for the 4 dormers you have in the both sides and all the sizes of the house. Basically, the other space is, roof lines inside. And our idea is to create more livable space for the attic because it's impossible to have it because the pitch is very slow. It's a steep slope, but inside there is not too much space. That is the reason we are creating the dormers. But like I said, we can explore the idea to see some different solutions
Okay,
if we
thank
raise
you.
it up the roof and see how that affects. And like I said, we can, if the Skype exposure is not like a fixed rule, we can definitely we can check it out.
Maybe a completely different roof line would just look better because then it
Maybe,
wouldn't
yeah,
look like
maybe we can
just
change
added
it a
on to
little.
that.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm trying to say.
we can try something. We may present a couple options and see how that looks. That would be something we can do.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
No problem.
Can I say something as a homeowner?
Sure.
That type of addition with the 2 dormers coming off the attic, I've seen multiple times all through this town and other towns. It's like a pretty common dormer style for what we're looking to do, which is why we kind of went with that.
Okay.
I mean, it's I've seen dormers off 3rd floors like that all through the towns, the river towns, including Dobbs. So is it just the location or is it just why other homes have similar dormers, but it's not appropriate for our house? Is there a specific reason why?
I wouldn't say there's a specific reason why. I just believe that architecturally, as far as in relation to the other homes on this streetscape, that it would be nice to see something more consistent.
Okay, but no matter what, the roof line is going to change dramatically from all the other homes around it. Whatever we come up with in the end.
It may. I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, there's no way it's going to look like the other roof lines if we're adding a whole new roof to the 3rd floor, no matter what we come up with.
I mean, I just think as a comment, my initial gut feeling is that it looks like you're just adding like wings onto it, and it's not something that I think is architecturally correct in this streetscape. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. I guess we'll have to come up with a different roof line, but anything is going to look kind of very different from the streetscape, I feel.
No,
We'll see.
Doesn't
That's
have
the
to.
challenge.
doesn't have to be.
That's the design process.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are we best to continue
I think so, especially with the issue with the roof line. maybe one more month.
Yeah. Agreeable?
Yeah.
All right, then I move that we continue pre-submission conference to our next meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Next item on our agenda is 231 Clinton Avenue, pre-submission conference for proposed interior and exterior renovation and addition. We'll just move along here.
Good evening, Chairperson and members of the Planning Board and newly minted AHRB.
Good evening.
My name is Dan Panesi, and I'm here for 231 Clinton. Just a little background, my wife and I live at 43 Appleton Place. We bought that house and renovated it. It was in much the same condition that 231 Clinton was in 2018. Since renovated 194 Clinton also, so we're marching south on Clinton Avenue. We've been watching this house since we were walking our kids around the block, and it's been vacant for probably 6 years. It sits up on the top. I know we have to add a location map to our plans. It sits up on the top of the hill, down the little private driveway where there's about 5 homes. It's 1.58 acres. It's currently approximately 3,300 square feet. In addition to that, there's a 444 square foot garage and a 166 square foot greenhouse off the south side. I'll pull up the plans in a minute if I can figure it out, but we're basically planning, it's a very odd shaped. Sorry. It's currently shaped kind of like a Tetris piece. It's very narrow in the center. It's only about 11 feet wide. And then on the north side of the building, it's about 16 feet wide. So what we're here to propose is a bump out to the kitchen of about just over 3 feet. Thank you. Just over, this is the existing condition here. This is the primary elevation when you come in from the driveway on top, and this is the elevation from Clinton Avenue if you were to come around the corner. What we're proposing to do, this is the existing floor plans. You can see here in the center, it's very narrow. This is the front door coming in. There is currently a covered paved area in this location where you enter the garage in the back. So although it's over 3,300 square feet currently, it's a very weird shape. So it's very narrow in through the foyer and very narrow on the north side. What we're proposing to do is to basically bump out this north side about 3 feet and make this a kitchen. We're also proposing to bump out this corner of the house, which is currently a sunroom, to make it a little bit bigger, and then add a covered porch on the outside of that. And I'll show you the plans in a moment. The largest of the addition is going to occur here on the second floor. It's currently a 2 to 3 bedroom house. The second floor currently stops about here. We're going to expand that second floor over the garage and over that covered paved area. There's rather detailed plans here showing it. The elevations, I think, tell the story best. So this is kind of that front elevation as you come in, and you can see there's a small 3-foot expansion off the north side, which is the kitchen. And then this is that addition on the second floor. We're basically pulling the garage forward into that covered paved area, turning that into the garage. Current garage will become another bedroom, and then the second floor will be 3 bedrooms. So we're here for our pre-submission conference for the planning board and also for AHRB.
Good. Well, interesting.
You don't approach any of the site is huge. You don't approach any of the zoning constraints.
No. We're well under all of our setbacks and bulk. The building coverage, we're increasing it from 4.3% to 5.7%, and the impervious coverage is going from 19.54 to 21.1. All of that, there was a comment in one of the memos, all of that additional 1.5% of impervious coverage is just the building addition.
That's kind of.
I could address some of the comments that we had received and certainly our plans. I think our architect, Lou Damasi, has been in touch with Anthony already. I don't know currently what the stormwater is. I know that there is some stormwater management on site. The leaders do go into the ground into something. We can explore what that is. It's a relatively flat site up on the top of the hill. And, we can certainly look at what needs to be done, but it is a rather large site.
Water goes downhill.
Yeah, right. There were a couple other questions. The lighting, we did note on the plans, and any of the exterior lights, they're really just replacements. They would comply with the Dobbs Ferry lighting code. We don't plan to remove any trees. We don't plan to do much in the way of landscaping. The existing landscaping would stand. And we can certainly note on the plans any erosion or sediment control, probably in the form of silt fences, around any disturbed areas.
Thank you. Any comments, questions from the board?
I have a question. There is a fireplace, I believe, on the interior and exterior, the rear elevation. Is that the fireplace?
Yes.
The patio. How is it vented? Is there a chimney or?
So I guess there's currently an interior fireplace that is going to get removed, which can be seen here.
Right.
And then the interior exterior new fireplace, we were going to use a ventless gas fireplace.
I have a question. Do you know any of the history of this house, how it got to be the way it was?
I've heard stories, but if you'd like to humor me, I'd love to hear more.
No, I don't know. It's just such a curious shape to start with.
I'm not a design professional, but I've been told by others that it may have initially been an architect's house.
The ultimate revenge.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We would ask, I'm certainly here to entertain any more questions or answer any questions. We would ask that given the limited nature of the consultant's comments, if we could move to open a public hearing at the next meeting.
Yeah.
And hopefully resolve AHRB either at that meeting or today. I did bring samples of the finishes. We are going to be replacing the windows with Pella Lifestyle. We are just going to be replacing the asphalt roof with asphalt. And I have colors for the trim and the siding, which will probably be either Boral or Hardy.
Okay. I would move that we have the call for a public hearing at our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda, item number 760 Washington Avenue, pre-submission conference for proposed additions to existing home.
Good evening, Mayor. Mr. Chairman. See if we can get up on this. Oh, no, yeah. I don't know. It's not, closer now. And get to the little things. Slideshow from the beginning. Huh, cool. So this is an existing house that we were involved in several years ago when Serge Casarda lived there. You guys approved site plan. We went, ARB allowed renovations of the existing house. Serge has sold the house to a very nice couple with, I think at this point, maybe 2 children. She was due like this week, but I haven't heard anything yet. And they are realizing they need a little bit more space. It is a very large piece of property. It's in the 20,000 square foot OF2 zoning district, and it's like 1.8 acres. It's the part of the Negler, I think, Dr. subdivision, where they said they didn't want to have more than 3 lots, even though they could have had like 7 or 8. So this is the old coach house, and our plan is to change it. And, well, first I'll give you, this is what it looks like now. This is after the renovation that we did, which was very kind of minor on the house, and not all of it exactly as we had hoped, but this gives us the chance to fix it. This is the back of the house. We're basically sitting in a, let me get to something actually shows something. So, so I'll go back to this. So here's the site plan. And what we're proposing to do is build a small addition on each of 3 sides of the house, and then a larger addition on the other side, the end of the house. We proposed a 2-car garage, and we're following the aesthetics, the concept, the materials, the character of the existing house. It's informing all the other pieces that we're doing. We're actually kind of splaying off of it with the additions so that. I'm still supposed to be moving quick, right? So the idea is the roof flares that's there now. So what we're doing is picking up the angle of that flare so that each of the small additions on the 3 sides just carry that line, carries that around. And then the larger addition on the end is almost like a little bit of a folly. It takes the connection that's right now the kind of closed-in porch, makes that the link to it, and that becomes this kind of big, fun family space. We are adding a guest suite in the lower level, so technically we're increasing the number of bedrooms from 3 to 4. Everything else on the inside of the existing house stays pretty much as it is. The additions that we're proposing are on the front and entrance. On this side, you're seeing the large addition. And then on this side, which is the east elevation, there's a porch with a family entrance coming in that's adjacent to the garage. And then on the back of the house, the north side, it's a addition for a home office. And then we've got a nice deck on the back that gets them up a story on the first floor, and they can sit and enjoy the property. I did go through the comment. This is the garage, which is kind of another small folly with, picking up the interesting roof lines of the house, the materials, carrying that all the way through. There's just some kind of models showing how the roof lines work and how things tie together. I think this is modest. Looking for Rob is the one who would normally call me out if I'm not being accurate on, but trying to fit in nicely with the way the site works. We're actually taking out a lot of asphalt. It's one of the questions that was on the notes from the village engineer. There is a driveway that currently goes to the house in the back. That was supposed to have been removed, so they're not connected because the house in the back has its own driveway. So we would be taking out all that additional asphalt. What the result of that is that we end up with less impervious surface than we have now. But I know that that is not an excuse for me not to have Michael Stein do a really nice storm drainage plan, even though we're not increasing site coverage. Am I correct, Anthony?
If there's a decrease in impervious coverage, I'm not sure you have to provide attention.
I think we need to make sure we're carrying it in a way that's not going to cause erosion sedimentation.
Yeah, you need a stormwater management plan,
Yeah.
but not necessarily stormwater detention.
But if we did stormwater detention, the comment on Zero North Mountain would be a good one here, is that what we would do is create some kind of a basin that the water could go into, that ducks could sit in, and people could come down and fish for, bass or something. Just in terms of our numbers, the current coverage of the house is 2.8. The proposed is 5.86, and this is in an area that allows 18%. As I noted, the impervious surface goes down. It allows 40%, and right now we're at 17.76, and we're going down to 17.11. So if you guys think we know what we're doing enough, we would love to come back to you with all this stuff developed a little further in public hearing. Any questions?
Not here. Any comments?
Come on, Alan, you can come up with something interesting.
Up and down the line?
Looks good.
Looks good. Then I would move for a public hearing at our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you much. Now, how was I with that one, Valerie?
It's a record.
I was just trying to get the
It's
first.
a record.
It is.
Thanks for doing the 3D model. That was good.
We always do those. Steve, something about you talking from airspace really freaks me out.
Next item on our agenda, 34 Clinton Avenue, pre-submission conference for proposed renovation in addition to existing building to create a multi-family residential building. Here we go.
This is a big project.
Here we go.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Christina Griffin, Principal CGA Studio Architects. I'm here with the property owner, John Sareva, and our consulting architect, Dipti Shah, and our team of architects, Karen, Suzanne, and our landscape architect, Louis Fusco. And we're here to present this is our first presentation of a proposal for development of this property so that we can have 11 two-bedroom, two-bath units. We are working with an existing building. This is, it's considered a Queen Anne style house that was built in 1878. It has really lovely detail, beautiful brickwork and a half timber look, lovely proportions. So our plan is to do an addition that is going to be in keeping with the pattern of these historic homes on Clinton Avenue and give the appearance of a large house next to it. But we have inside this building 11 units with a link that provides our elevator and stair egress requirements. The existing building has currently 3 units in it, and we're planning to add a 4th, and the new building will have 7 more units. We are planning to restore the exterior of this building, and then inside, we're going to completely renovate it. This is just our zoning chart to show how this is an as of right design. So in every respect, we're going to meet the zoning requirements. The area of the property is 29,908, so it's almost 30,000, about 3 times the size of the required lot size in this district. This is in an MDR-8 district. We have some steep slopes that we're going to discuss later on. We have a reduction to the buildable area because of that, which brings us to 27,763 square feet. We have, when it comes to the number of units, we're allowed 12 units, but we're proposing a total of 11. We have, for the minimum lot size per dwelling unit, if you divide the 11 units into our lot size, we have 2719, which is higher than the minimum of 2,500. We are meeting our affordable housing requirement of 10% of the units to be affordable, which is 1. We have a driveway slope that meets the, it's 9%, which is under the 12% max. And we are meeting the parking requirements by having a garage in the basement for 7 spaces, 10 outdoor, and in all the other categories, we're meeting the code where the front yard setback is required 40, pushing the building back to 80.9, so that aligns with the old house. Rear yard setback is, and the side yards are all in compliance. The heights as well, which we'll show you how we did that calculation. Next slide, please. These are just some bullet points, or some points to show how some of the most important aspects of meeting the code. One is that the project meets the MDR-H district bulk requirements as confirmed by the letter we received from the village planning analyst, 1229. Second item is that this complies with the section that describes how the proposed building in this district is to reinforce the existing pattern of the larger historic homes and estates that have been subdivided into multifamily units and while maintaining the exterior appearance of a single-family home. Third item is we meet the impervious surface requirements, which we'll have the landscape architect describe later, using porous asphalt, which is a way of allowing the water to go through at a certain percentage. We're meeting affordable housing, which meets the requirement of no less than 80% the size of the market rate unit in the building. And these 2 items relate to our landscaping plan, which we'll explain later how the planning replacement plan complies with the code as confirmed by the village planner, and that we are providing screening also to meet the code. Next slide, please. Oh, this is just showing all the calculations that we've put into our coverage and number of units. These are the photographs of the existing building. It has a lot of really beautiful features that we're planning to restore, but it has some features such as this porch here, which is dilapidated and it's in really disrepair, so we're removing that, and we're also removing the garage and these a sunroom and these additions that were put on over the years. Down below is an aerial view showing the site, one of the historic houses on the street, which is in between other historic houses, and occasionally you see like a 60s 2-story house. Next slide. This is our area map to show the location and our street elevations. Most of the houses on the street, as you know, beautiful historic homes with steep gable roofs and dormers, Most of them have very lovely porches. 34 is here. This is the original building. This is our addition. This is showing we have a piece linking the addition to the old house that's set back about 40 feet from these facades. And in most cases, the buildings are similar in proportion and in roof configuration that are on this street. And these are just photographs showing the big Victorian down the few doors down. Next door, the building undergoing renovation. All the houses within a certain radiuses on this, within 200-foot radius is on our streetscape, including the 14 to 16 and 12, the 3 buildings that are at the end of Clinton, which was inspiring because of the way they also have a courtyard with the building in the middle setback. Next slide, please. Okay, this is an aerial view, and this is just showing our site right here. This is existing. Right now, there is a driveway that comes in here that leads to a garage, which we're going to remove, and this is the existing building. As you can see, there's lots of other large gabled houses nearby. And this is our proposed extension. This is showing an extension to the old house on one side and a much larger one over here with a very similar roof configuration. This is, if you compare this to the building across the street, smaller, it's a little larger than some of the large houses nearby. So it sort of fits within the range of size and bulk that exists on the street. And here is our site plan. So we have developed this so that the facade of our new addition is very similar in proportion and aligns with the existing house so that we can keep a large front yard, and most of the bulk of the building is tucked back in the site with a courtyard in between. And parking is either in the garage underground on the basement level, or there's outdoor parking here, 7 spots indoor and 10 outdoor. I'm going to now, actually, I'm going to ask Louis Fusco. He is the landscape architect, and he's going to tell you about how we're developing the site.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Louis Fusco, landscape architect. Okay, and since I heard I don't like parking in the front, I'll just mention the situation of having to locate the parking in the front is because we do have steep slopes behind the building, so it really limited our use of the back of the property for parking. And what we've tried to do from a landscape point of view is maintain the character of the property, of the road and all, and screen the parking and create as much of a natural feel, limiting the amount by putting at least 7 of the spots indoors, so we have less outside. We could turn on. We've created these visual renderings of the new property. This is showing an existing hedge that is out at the sidewalk, which we will maintain, which is approximately a 4-foot hedge to help block. So your view from across the street, passing the street, we have quite an extensive, which we'll go over the planting plan, of new evergreens and shrubs as a secondary layer of plantings that will be falling between the hedge at the edge of the road and the beginning of the parking lot to help screen that. And here, this image particularly, we're showing, as Christine was mentioning, the courtyard in the center. There's a walkway path that would be coming through landscape to give you more of that residential feel of the road as compared to a feeling of a corporate park, larger facility. Next slide here. This is, as you enter in through the driveway, the drive at that 9% going down to the garages and the parking with the indoor parking. It shows the steps going up to our new courtyard. We have a alley. We've planted all the plantings. We've gone with, it's almost I think I'm like 95% native plant material. Those are fastigiata, sweet gum that would be lining the wall, creating some privacy between the units as well as some interesting private spaces within that courtyard area. This is showing the porous asphalt driveway. The section of the parking has all become is all porous. We're using it as we're taking a 45% reduction, which is a very modest reduction for a fully porous area. The way a porous asphalt works, essentially the majority of the water that lands, if not all the water that lands on it, drains through the driveway into a storage area below. We've used it on properties where it becomes our whole storage unit for site drainage as well. In this case, generally they consider the voids at 20%, and actual soil, if you do a testing on a soil, is anywhere between 20 and in an ideal situation 40. So it almost is the same as if you're just running water right on soil. So that would help us definitely for the drainage situation in there. We've landscaped within the building there in the areas. There are some trees we have 5 trees, which actually I'll discuss when we get to the plan, but you can continue with the renderings. This brings us into that connecting piece that the architects were talking about originally, that connects the two. So the main entry for most of the units will be coming in through here, and we're creating a pleasant, different seating areas that will bring you into this area. View back out to the parking on that area. And this is coming down the sidewalk looking into the corner, and here's where you can see that double layering of plantings. We've got American holly and viburnums following up, as well as native white birch within the inside, buffering any of the parking as well, and trying to keep and to replace any of the plantings that we will be removing, some of the trees on the property. And this is just, again, to the back of the first plate. Here, this is just showing our site plan. We can actually, since we've talked about most of this, maybe go to the planting plan. Our planting plan on the left, as I mentioned, we are removing 5 trees as per that meet the town's requirements of over 8-inch caliper. They add up to a total of 65 caliper inches. And we are replacing them with 52 trees that our requirement is actually 65 caliper inches, and we're at 170.5. So we're 130% over the required with what we're proposing right now. Most of the trees that we are planning to remove are in poor condition to begin with or dangerous. There's a white pine in the front that leans out across the sidewalk even, and there's a beech that is half dead up in top of it that is in the location of where the building will be going. So we feel that our approach to the landscape has been trying to work it within the neighborhood, work it within the site, and being responsible with the safety of the existing trees.
Now, when it comes to the building, this is showing the existing building and the structures that we're planning to remove. There's an old porch here that we're going to replace with a new porch, but perpendicular to that, in front of the new addition. This is the old garage and all these buildings that we're planning to take off and away from the original building. And this is our proposed. This building is around 5,900 square feet. It's a 3-story building. Our new building is also 3 stories, and it's 16,600 square feet. On the lower level, the basement level, we have an entrance to a garage that has 7 parking spaces with the handicap space here closest to the elevator core. Waste areas right near the garage door and a separate door entering the garage. We have our stair and elevator core that can be accessed from this garage, and a courtyard that is a common area that allows people to come into the main lobby and get access to all the units. There is a separate entrance to the old building because we want to maintain the historic main entrance to this house for the unit that is on the first floor. Next slide, please. This is our steep slopes analysis. This is showing existing, and this is showing proposed. Most of the steep slopes is in this area. We are going to have a disturbance of slopes over 35% of so far 1,069 square feet by the new building. But we are still waiting for our storm drainage plan. Most of the storm drainage units will be back here, and we are planning to make sure that we're under 1,500 square feet of total disturbance, which we think we can meet easily. This is the basement plan again. I think we covered that. Maybe next slide, please. A first floor plan shows that on this level, we have the main entrance, gradual step up into this lobby. This leads to 3 units in the new building. One is a duplex. All units are 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And there is a, also the entire first floor of the old building is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit. I'm sorry. The reason to look at the basement plan was probably just to show the affordable housing unit is on the lowest level of the old building, which is over here, which has full height glass and light in the back and the side of the building. And then on our second floor, it's very similar to first floor plan. We have 2 units with a duplex and the full unit for the second floor of the old house. Next slide. And this is our third floor. The third floor is tucked into roof lines. So we have followed the pattern of the old building where there are some dormers and gables that allow light and more height into this unit. We've treated the addition in a very similar way where we have knee walls and dormer windows and to get the height and the light and ventilation into these units. This is our roof plan. Very similar treatment where we have gable roofs, some dormers, some flat roof in the inner area of the building. Next slide. This is our east elevation. This is the elevation facing the street. This is the same facade of the old house that we're planning to repair, restore, bring it back to its former glory as much as we can. This is what we've been calling the link. It's actually a facade that is set back about 30 or 40 feet from this wall. And this provides the main entrance to the building and access to our egress stair and elevator. To the right, this is the new 3-story addition showing the entrance to the garage in the basement level, 9% slope driveway, bay window. Windows are very similar in size and proportion to the old house. The gable is the same roof slope. The width of the facade actually matches the old house. We started with this as sort of the premise for our design because we wanted very much to see how we can do a building that is going to really fit in with the other buildings on this site and also neighboring sites with the similar proportions, similar height, similar roof configuration. So it's like a variation on a theme that's been established by the historic building. And then this facade is set back so that the facade that is the same width as the old building is prominent. Next slide, please. As we go around the building, it's the north elevation. We're breaking up the building with gabled roofs, shed dormers, and gable dormers. Next slide. Thanks. And then in the back of the building, we have some opportunity for some decks to provide some outdoor space for those units. Again, the similar treatment of the roof as the old building. Next slide, please. And this is just showing the side of the building where this is forward of the addition, which is back further towards the north side of the property. These are our courtyard elevations showing how we have a view of the old building. This is a very beautiful brick bay window with gable, some decorative details. We're planning to restore this. This has a porch now in front of it that we're removing. And this is the other side of the courtyard showing our new porch, which will have the same type of design as the original porch in terms of the chamfered columns and beams. And this is the facade on the other side of the courtyard. Next slide, please. Okay. And this is just the same visual we showed you before. We thought this was important to land on this view because it kind of sums up the our proposal, showing the addition that is similar in proportion and configuration to the old building, with the courtyard set in here and the main entrance set back, and then lots of greenery to have buffers around the parking areas. And that's the extent of our presentation, and I'd be happy to hear any questions.
Well, thank you. I think we're probably, all of us have been waiting to see your presentation tonight. Because, this is one of the, I think, one of the key streets, important residential streets in Dobbs Ferry. And I think, you know, we are sensitive to maintaining that sense.
So I'll start.
Go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I totally support this project from a conceptual point of view. I have no issues with the density or, I think, but I feel like there kind of, in a way, there's three buildings here. There's the original building, there's the building that you're building in the front, because you recognize that the thing that everybody was going to be most tuned into was the elevation from Clinton. And then there's the mass that you're putting on the back. And I think if you look at the rear elevation, if you go to the rear elevation and contrast that with what you're doing in the front, it's like it's like a completely different building. In other words, the idea that you're gonna kind of riff on the existing architecture, I think is exactly right. And I think that's what you do here. But I think, and you see it in the roof plan, you see how the roof plan goes from being very animated in terms of dormers and everything on Clinton Avenue. And then once you get to that mass on the back, it's the big flat roof and much less in terms of volumetric change. Having the 4 balconies with the sliding glass doors is from another vocabulary, I think, it's from another building. So I don't think that there's like I said, I don't have a problem with the overall bulk or massing of the thing in terms of the overall scale, but I think the same kind of attention that you paid to the massing animation that's on the front of the building needs to go around to the back of the building as well. It's like a different building. And then the other thing I would say in response to Steve's comment about the parking is I think that there ought to be a way, one of the things that is pretty typical of the houses along here is that they are set back and there are often these kind of meandering drives that brought you to the front and so on. And I think part of what's the turnoff on the parking is, again, it's this kind of, I'm sure it's the most efficient layout there is, sort of a block of parking, as opposed to something that could be, I think, much more distributed along a set of roads that are more, and maybe you have to get another curb cut to have a kind of loop drive, the way there was once upon a time at Women's Club. Maybe there still will be. I mean, I think the Women's Club is, in my mind, the best precedent. They sort of made their building bigger, and the same kind of attention to the kind of massing sort of was really worked around the entire structure. And I think that's what you have to do here. And I think you probably can get the parking if it's, rather than being in a conventional lot, if it's along a sort of a kind of loop road, essentially like more like parallel parking along a drive, you can probably get to the same number without it suddenly being like the one big kind of block, 60-foot deep with, parking the way you might have if you weren't on this beautiful street. And even if you screen it, I think you're still going to see it in the roofs of the cars and so on. And I think there's got to be a way, given how big the site is and how big the front yard is, to sort of have a more distributed approach to the parking.
I agree. I think that it looks like on the south side of the property that there would be space to line up some of the parking, and it would be nice to open up the hedge and the walkway just to, look into the facade a little bit more from the street.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely look into these ideas, yeah.
Speaking of.
Part of the issue is also coverage, trying to stay at.
Yes.
If, the allowance is, even a better allowance is at 45% pervious, then we definitely do it. Once we start when we played around with parking, other configurations, but every time we're way over the coverage. But we can play around because I do agree if we could open up and maybe some areas where I could vegetate, keep some spaces.
Yeah. I think it could be more distributed somehow and not look like, a parking lot in front of an institution, just kind of like the way it looks.
Speaking of parking, just really quickly, we noted in our memo that we had concerns about whether the porous parking actually counts as pervious surface in the village's zoning. John, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
We wanted to see a study for the Northeast for this material to see when this porous blacktop freezes underneath.
Right.
How porous is it? So we need that data.
I mean, we've heard in other meetings that porous asphalt needs to be maintained in some way, otherwise it starts to reduce its efficacy.
There is a maintenance that is required. Maintenance on there's a vacuum control system to be done. As far as everyone that I've spoken to, and I have to get information on the actual data behind it, but there's less of a concern of freezing down below because the heat of the ground, you're still, it's that frozen water. Voids between the stones, water is never sitting there. The whole idea of this penetrating the soil. So voids are still there. Like solid. That water doesn't stay there, so it's not voided.
What about using other models of porous surfacing, like open block, there are open block where grass can grow in between, and also it wouldn't have to all be one thing or the other, right? I mean, another way to kind of sort of gardenify this parking business is to not have all the parking surface treated the same way. Maybe there are different materials, that would give it sort of more variation and.
Yeah, we looked at that, and which is a possibility. We could do the main section that people drive on most, but at the actual parking space.
Or the open block that grass grows in between, yeah.
We've been told that the pervious paving actually gets clogged over time as well, unless it's
It has to be
maintained.
maintained, yeah.
And it can freeze, which,
Although his
But
point
it-
is if it's frozen, the ground would be frozen, you know, whatever surface it is would be frozen, I guess is your point, right? It's not, at that point, it's not really percolating water,
There would have to be a maintenance program, you know.
which would have to be
put in
enforced,
place,
which is
of course.
hard to do.
And it would, the soils will need to be tested as you would, say, for a dry well system. And the depth underneath the porous pavement of the gravel and stone is usually pretty thick. So that, you know, it should, if it can percolate into the ground, it should dissipate, you know, and not freeze. But, you know, the soils would have to be looked at. It has to be appropriate soil material.
What's
Is there, if you were to go with, let's say, a grass paved, is there a percentage that you're allowing that? Because that'll help us to.
Yeah, I don't know that. No, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
we need the specs from the manufacturer of it.
For the grass paved.
Yeah.
I mean, there are systems out there that are almost totally grass. It's,
Right.
you know, a cellular type, you know.
That's what I was thinking.
Plastic,
sort of.
you know, material, but it's just, you know, plowing would be an issue and snow removal, you have to, you know, just think about that.
I think the load is going to be a factor about how successful something like that would be also. You know, an occasional parking is probably going to work, but regular traffic is not.
That would be,
Well,
that,
I don't
you
know.
may want to just do that in the parking areas, not necessarily in the travel aisle. you
Right,
know,
that's,
and-
right, it doesn't all have to be the
But
same
they,
thing.
they are made to actually, you know, if you have sufficient, you know, subgrade material, to hold up, you know,
Yeah.
truck traffic.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, like a fire truck.
Right, I've seen heavy-duty streets are
Mhm.
treated with that, so.
We use them on campus a lot. They're definitely can hold up. It's not a truck problem. For like the soil, the plowing, you know, it could be a mess. You know, that's, I think that.
The speaker should use the microphone.
Sorry about that, but I was just saying that I think the biggest concern would be after a winter with the grass, you know, just through plowing and things of that nature. But we'll look at the different options and provide cut sheets on them as well.
Just to back up a little bit, what's driving the size of this project? I mean, this is clearly this is on a residential street, and it's way out of proportion to anything else in the village.
These are, well, actually, a lot of the program requirements comes from the property owner wanting to provide additional units. That would be meet all the zoning regulations according to Dove's Ferry's code. And I think our goal was to have approximately 11 units, and after all the analysis, we found that we can meet the code with that, and we want to do it in a way that has massing and scale that is similar to the other buildings on the street, but it is actually not as large as the building across the street on Clinton Avenue. And if you saw the aerial plan, there are other buildings on the area that are similar in size or larger.
Well, yeah, that's called a school.
But it's also a Victorian, I mean, it was an expansion of a Victorian house.
I actually don't agree. I think it's an architectural problem. I don't think that it is inherently too big a development. I think from my point of view, it goes to this architectural issue of how can it be massed to look like a big mansion that's been added onto over time. I mean, it's essentially what we have at former Ladies Women's Club, which we all fell in love with. And that's a big development. I've forgotten how many. Do you remember how many units are in? How many? 5 units. That's it. Well, but still, it got bigger.
Oh, sorry, 4.
It's a big house, and it got bigger, and I think it can be done. and I don't, that's, as you said, it's zoned for this kind of thing. So for me, it's an architectural challenge. It's not, I'm not inherently turned off by the scale of it, the density of it. I mean, that's just my opinion.
No, I know, I'm not agreeing with you, I'm just saying, okay.
I kind of looked at it and went, whoa, it's pretty large. It is, if you look at the original house, it's, this big, and now all of a sudden you have these big masses around it. I don't know, maybe maybe it could be a little softer or architecturally not as boxy,
I think that's what the issue really is.
It's just that it's just like, it looks just like this mass, I think is what kind of threw me off a little bit. The front doesn't seem as
I was
massive.
gonna say, do you object to that?
No, I mean, the front doesn't seem massive at all, but it's the back end that just is, the side and the back, it's just like,
Yeah.
and when you look at it in the aerial view with the neighbors, it does look big, as far as, there's a little tiny house next to it. I don't know what is it, 20 feet or something in between, or to the lot line, and then I don't know what the next neighbor has, but I don't know how that's going to impact with, 24 cars going in if each person has 2 cars. That street, and also the amount of traffic and noise and gas, carbon dioxide and all that. So,
And then how many units are in Wits End? But approved for 9.
I mean, that's just that was my initial gut feeling when I first looked at, the project. And like, Rob said, when you look at the front, it doesn't feel massive. But as you noted before, when you look at the back and the side views, it does become a feeling of very massive.
Because it is.
Because it is.
Well,
Would the board want, Anthony and I were just talking, would the board want maybe a rendering from the rear property line?
Yeah, although I wouldn't waste your time rendering what you've drawn. Because I don't think it's gonna show, I think it's pretty clear from the rear elevation that it's a very different kind of treatment than the rest of the building. I would appreciate a rendering similar to this after you've
right.
done some of your magic.
Your points are well taken. We've focused so much on the front because we care about how this is going to be, how it's going to look. We made sure that it's no taller, it has similar proportions. There's so much attention given to that. We can give more attention and take a look at the side and the back so that it's more of a similar treatment and similar pattern. So we have still, it's our first meeting, so we can look into that for sure.
I'd like to say that I think as a village, we're trying to encourage development by mass transit, by downtown, so people can walk, those kind of things. And I think that this does meet those criteria. So if we can find a way to somehow make it feel subjectively smaller, that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
I think in the facade, if the facade of the connecting building, the facade, maybe the top was stepped back a little bit or something, just make it a little bit less, I mean, it's 30 feet back, which is great, but just something would make it go back a little bit more, just architecturally.
Yeah, but then you're just pushing the back of the building back further against.
I mean, not physically back, but in terms of the facade of the connector on Clinton. Just
Between the 2 buildings, Steve, is that
correct.
what you're saying?
Yeah, correct.
The back of the property does back up to a parking lot. So
I mean, I don't have a problem with the size of it. It's really just the perception of the size of the connector from Clinton.
That floor in the connector provides the egress stair and elevator.
No, I understand, but maybe it's a different texture or a sort of a different roof treatment or something.
That's what I was saying.
And it appears that the most impacted neighbor is going to be the one towards Broadway. So we should probably look and see what we can do to mitigate that as well.
Mhm.
Is the house on the corner, isn't that a condo or multiple living
You mean Wits End?
on Broadway and Clinton, that
Yeah,
corner
this
house?
here.
Is that, what's that called?
It's Whitson.
Oh, sorry.
And those are condos, right? By the way, is the idea, these are going to be sold? These are,
Yes. And how many units are in that building, in Woods End?
You said 7?
Oh, that's
7
the one you were
units.
speaking of.
Three in the middle building, two to the left, to the right. I was gonna have two more back behind.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that's the building you were speaking of. Okay.
You allow public comment tonight?
No,
it's
No.
pre-submission.
Okay.
public, it'll be a public hearing, no, don't worry.
Thank you.
No, overall, I think it's a really nice design, and thank you for taking such care with the forward building.
I like that, fine.
Will return
I think
this
I'm-
time.
Right, that's not, right, but you know what, it's still good for them to print that out.
Christina, I'm sorry, the slope table that you have and where the garage is there, like, are you gonna have to jackhammer the rock, or is there an impact on the steep slope? Is there rock there, or it's just the way that the landscape slopes?
Where the driveway is into the garage,
Correct.
you're asking about?
No, the back area, in the back of the lot there, is this steep slope right here? Yeah,
At the rear of
The
the
rear of the
new
garage.
building.
of the new proposed.
It slopes down to a gully, right?
No, I don't think
There's nothing,
I don't think so.
okay, I was just curious, since we have so much rock tonight.
In this area, it's more.
Discussions.
gully.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I've got to say that the civil engineer has done their testing, and they said they had an excellent perk soil and the location of the storm drainage back area, and he's working on the design.
Is there a stream at the rear of the property?
Question, but I don't.
The stream
Yes.
is called the Clinton River.
Okay, thank you.
It comes down past my house.
Behind your house as well.
Behind your house, and down. Gady. Goes right into Gady's house.
Watches this one, you pull out of the ground.
Oh, I think we talked about that once.
We did.
Thank you.
We'll continue this.
I'm sure.
Yeah, remember his,
It'll be a great addition to the Clinton River. I could run my boat right up there.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're gonna vote on it anyway.
No, we're too far. We got a long way to go.
We'll let him come back again soon.
Doesn't go to public comment.
When we call a public hearing.
call a public
that'll be
hearing,
the
you'll know it.
That'll be the time for public comment.
Okay, there's more to go for people that want to stay around. Next item on our, next item on our agenda is 76 Ogden Place West. Continuation of approval for proposed addition to existing home.
Mr. Chairman,
It's under, it's under the planning board agendas.
yes,
Yeah.
this one is number, and this one already had a couple of public hearings, so you'll have to open it up for public hearing. And there is a resolution for the board's consideration tonight, and I can walk through the resolution whenever the board is ready.
So I move we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, right.
1, 2, 3, 4. worries.
No problem.
Take your time.
You could use a break, so.
Have there been any changes?
Yeah, that's what I was, do you want to just present the changes that you submitted for this?
For the planning?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So do you want me to do that, address the planning issues first and then perhaps close that out and then move on to the AHRB, or just kind of go through the whole?
I would just go through the AHRB, and then if there were any other minor planning issues that you changed, you could just highlight those.
Sorry. Okay. So my name is Liz Vanderzand, and I'm the owner of the property as well as the architect for the project. I guess I should go through the whole thing just generally anyway, right? Or just the changes?
to the-
just the changes,
Okay.
yes.
So
Please.
the only changes were that I included, for the purposes of the AHRB, I included window specifications and sort of tightened some of that up. And I included an outdoor light spec, which is actually a light that's already on our piers out in front of the house, same one that I would intend to relocate when we relocate the piers at the front path. I can go through some of these things. So actually, first let me show you photographs.
There's a public hearing going on outside. I hope that they noticed it properly.
So this is under the AHRB section
No.
of the agenda?
Yeah, no.
Well, the AHRB and the planning board, when
it's
they're.
both.
It's also
right,
on
So you're
both.
just hearing everything.
So,
Okay, so what's on our, I mean, we still have site plan to do for this?
Your site plan, you've already reviewed a few months in a row. Nothing
Right.
has changed really on the site plan.
We
so-
haven't approved the site plan.
No,
yet.
that needs to
Okay.
be approved for resolution, and then the AHRB, you'll need to approve that.
Okay, and that's like, windows and things like that. Okay, sorry, we have a new dual role, and so I'm still
I know,
getting my head
and
around
I'm
that.
not sure how to address you specifically on all of these things because I've already, been here a few times for planning. and
Right.
So I'm trying to see how it could be most concise for the purpose of this newly organized meeting. Okay. Sorry, I'm
I don't think there's any issues here.
navigating here.
I think what was missing from your application was the materials listings, correct?
Right, so, well, I was gonna show you, I really am having trouble zooming out in the program, I'm sorry. Should have brought my own lens. All right, so I'm gonna have to just scroll through the photographs too.
Yeah.
And that will, then, within that, I can address some of the material questions. So, I mean, you've seen before the location of the home. It's on Ogden Place, just before the cul-de-sac. And we're on the west side of the street. There we are. And here are existing photographs. This is a special view of the front of the house where you see the oldest part of the house. So the house, I think I've described this for you before, but the oldest part of the house is from the 1890s, and that is this. It was originally just a 4-room house with a 2-wide brick foundation and wood framing above, and that has remained largely the same since then. We did some work when we bought the house years ago and beefed up the structure, insulated everything, put in windows and all of that, and that was back in 2012 rather. Then the balance of the house, as it is now, was built in 1965. So stylistically, the house is already somewhat of a hybrid. Really much more of a mid-century piece, although it has some touches that tie it into an older style of building. But if you see the interior, it's really more mid-century. And so there's this contrast between the older part of the house where we have 6/6 double hung windows, and some of the existing openings we had replaced with windows and doors with no muntins at a certain and the newer part of the house has a mixture of these very large double hung windows in the front, which are like 12/16, and then a few very narrow and tall, direct glazed, single pane windows. And you can see those here on the end. There are two of them, and adjacent to the front where there's another. So the house is, you can see that there's wood siding primarily throughout most of the house. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the lower story of the original house is brick, which is painted. This part of the house, that was the newer 1960s part of the house, the brick is unpainted, and you see that the brick actually carries around, and so that the back of the house where the slope is coming down toward the home is all brick along the back of the 1960s addition, and no windows along the back of that part of the house. And then this is a view from the southwest where you see the joint of the two parts of the house, the intersection of the two parts of the house. You can see on the older part of the house, double hung windows above, and we have a large picture window downstairs. And that's the south end of the house, which is, all the older part of the home, but you see a little bit of that 1960s addition out there. These are some context photos of the neighborhood. I have to say the houses, it doesn't look like any other house on the street. So being contextual, I'm trying to be contextual within the house itself and, respectful of that. But most of the houses that surround ours were built much later, with the exception of the houses back on the end of. So this is just a view from 64, in the street in front of 64 back toward our property, and in there, beyond the trees, is where this addition will be. This is the right-of-way for the Portland house above there, or the street. So there's no house on our south side that directly abuts our property. There's actually now an empty lot here, the treed empty lot, and then at the end of the street, the unoccupied, unfinished house that you're probably familiar with. And then to give you more context, on the opposite side of the street, we have a row of colonial style houses, all built in the 90s. And then as you go further up the street, that starts to change. This is another house. This is two houses down from us on the north side. So given this existing condition where I have this hybrid house, what we're proposing to do is, when I started thinking about this, it's very clear, obviously, that the southernmost part of the house is older, and that the 1960s section is obviously newer. And I liked the idea of this being kind of this patchwork almost, but trying to make it somehow work as one house. But I really don't mind the idea that this newest part of the house is clearly going to be newer than the other two that preceded it. But given that, I still wanted to materially stay with the same palette and also pick up on the size and proportion of some of the existing windows. So, what I'm proposing to do is, on this bedroom addition, these windows in the front are similarly sized to the windows that are on the front of the house here. These existing windows, I am proposing to remove those large double-hung windows that are there now. They're inoperable. They've been painted shut over the years, and they're single pane, so they require a storm window on them all the time. So because of the reflection, you really do not read the divided lights unless it's nighttime. And you don't read the finish of the windows because you just see the storm windows. So the windows on the oldest part of the house have white sashes. The windows on the 1960s part at the front are actually wood windows that you don't see. What you do see is like a kind of a bronze finish storm window. So what I'd like to do is to take those out and replace them with insulated casement windows to match what I'm proposing to put in the bedroom addition. And as I said, I would leave the size of those existing openings as they are and just infill them with the new windows, operable windows. So as you go around the house, primarily what I'm proposing are casements. Some are fixed picture windows, a few are awnings. But basically, as I said, I was picking up on the porch in here. I have a connector piece here, which has a little bit of a different window type, but I really couldn't, this is what I felt worked best, fortunately there. And as you go around the north side, again, I have another one of these tall windows, a small window up very high, like a transom type of window at the back, and you're seeing the window that I'm proposing to put in the base. And at the back of the house, I'm picking up on this, it's really a plane of brick, unpainted brick that goes across the back of the house and forms the chimney as well, and I want to pick up on that and, for practical and for aesthetic reasons, and run it along the lower portion of the back facade. I've kept, obviously this is in keeping with gabled roofs. I couldn't get the pitch to be exactly the same as the other end of the house that faces Ogden, but still it's just a gabled roof. And as far as colors and materials, the first option is obviously to stay with the colors that are there now, so that the wood siding that would be on the the proposed addition would be stained the same brown as the existing. And the base or the foundation wall would be painted to match foundation wall of the 1960s part of the house, which is painted white. And then the brick wall at the back would be left just unpainted, which is a continuation of what you see now at the back of the house. The roofing material would be asphalt shingle to match what's there. If bids come back unexpectedly low and I have the option to repaint or restain the house, my preference would be to change the brown to a gray. But that's kind of an add alternate maybe for the future, we'll see. But for now, as I said, the idea is to keep the materials and the finishes in keeping with what's there. As far as the finish on the windows that we're proposing to use are the Marvin Ultimate. I can open up those if you like.
I'm sorry, I probably missed this, but are they going to be clear? Are they going to have muntins?
I'd like them to be clear. The house, as I said before, has a mix of windows with and without lights, divided lights. So in the oldest part of the house, I can show you. So, for example, what we have right now here, in the oldest part of the house, we've kept the double hung windows, the divided lights upstairs and anywhere downstairs where there was an opening like that. Upstairs we have a window with no muntins, so just a clear window. Downstairs, we have a clear window. On the side of the house, we have a door that's clear, no muntins. On the back of the house, there existing, we have a picture window that has no muntins. And the 1960s part of the house, obviously these two pairs of double hung windows are divided, but all of the direct glazed units have no divisions. They're all clear glass. So all of the new windows that would go in, my strong preference is that they also have no divisions. They would be clear.
Thank you.
The finish on them, right now I have, I'm going to show you the windows. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm using Marvin alternate line. So those have an aluminum cladding, and that could be any color we want it to be. Right now I have it priced out as bronze. My feeling was that with, given that this is adjacent to the 1960s edition, and there you really don't read the sashes, and you have several openings that are direct glazed, I wanted to try to get something that was close to the color, so that the sashes don't jump out at you like they do in the stained part of the oldest part of the house. So, as I said, right now I have it priced out in bronze, and I felt like that could go well with the existing brown, or if we were able to do a gray, that it also would mesh with that.
Good. Any questions? This is a continuation of a public hearing. I expect we should open the public hearing.
Second.
Not that there's anybody left, but
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, all right, I can see three people that could possibly. All right, then I move we close the public hearing.
Actually, I do have one.
Oh,
No, it's good. I mean, I think what you're trying to do is really great. It's a struggle because you don't have an unlimited budget. The one thing I would take a look at is you threw me with the horizontal windows.
Yes.
And I think you've got a nice rhythm going with the verticals. So if you went the height you like with those, it matched in the width of the verticals, I think you'd have a nice rhythm. And it would just make it seem like it's not two different things happening. But I think it works either.
So, thank you. Yes, some of those horizontal windows are more narrow, a couple of them. I've played with this for a long time. And so, and part of it
Do we have a
is
resolution?
that at the back of the house, we're dealing with a slope up and neighbors beyond, and there's some concern about, privacy as well, because the back of that addition
Look at
comes
that.
after the walk-in spot. So, I want, what's that?
Is the board okay with the horizontal windows?
Yes.
So I think we can move on.
Let's, maybe we
Thank
can
you.
move on.
Okay, yeah.
We have a resolution.
Yeah, we do have a resolution.
We have a
So
resolution.
I think we're ready to get you
Oh,
going.
was a vote on
Is
the,
there anything
you need to close the public hearing?
Wait,
Yeah, no.
is there anybody online
planning that you?
raising their hand? No?
No, I move we close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so there will be two, the resolution that I'm about to run through is the site plan resolution. There'll be a vote on that, and then Dan Posen and I went back and forth, and for the AHRB, typically the AHRB just does a quick resolution in the minutes acknowledging the approval of the plans that were submitted. That's all you're gonna do is just do a quick vote on the AHRB.
Good.
I'm just curious though, going forward, I'm a little confused about the line between the AHRB and the planning board. Now one entity.
Yes.
Why isn't there, for example, for this project, one resolution, one thing? Why is it?
Functionally, it really is.
Why is it separated at all?
This project was presented while there was still a separate AHRB.
So is that why it's this way?
Well, I mean,
Like going
the-
forward, a
Technically-
project that comes before us, we're looking at everything, right?
But technically, to keep you have to keep certain things separate because there are provisions in the code that apply to the AHRB, others apply to the planning board. Now, your review and analysis and discussion could encompass all of that at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just, at the end of the day, we need a more detailed resolution from the planning board with an acknowledgement from the AHRB as to the.
So I'm embarrassed to say this, but like somehow in my head, I thought the AHRB was actually gone.
No,
And it's not gone.
No.
It is
You are just
You can't find it, but
Right, now you are the AHRB as well.
So you're both.
I know it's too late to revisit this
So you
now or
ha-
go,
you now have a
I don't want to
split
raise that.
personality.
but I-
Split
Well,
job.
because there will be applications before you that's just for AHRB.
Right.
And so, and you're not gonna have a site plan resolution associated with it.
Okay.
And what types of what types of,
It would be if for some reason, you know, 76 Ogden wanted to enlarge some window casings and put new windows in. That would require AHRB, it wouldn't require a site plan.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So you have a resolution?
Yes, I do. Are you ready?
Well, I don't.
Did you
care if
close the public hearing?
Read it or not, you can read the last line.
Please do what you think is appropriate.
Sure. I'll make it quick. Whereas the owner and applicant is seeking site plan approval to build an addition on the north end of the house, install curb cut, and add a permeable parking for one car on its property. The site is located at 76 Ogden Place. Whereas the planning board conducted a duly noticed public hearing on December 1st, 2022, and it was concluded on January 4th, right? Maybe the 5th, thank you, 2023, during which time all those wishing to be heard were given the opportunity to be heard and provide written comment. And whereas the planning board also reviewed and examined letters, reports, and memorandum from the board's consultants, and the planning board's recommendation and consideration of the testimony and comments obtained during the public hearing process. Now therefore be it resolved, the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry determines that based upon the findings and reasonings set forth below, the application for site plan approval is granted, subject to the following conditions: that the approved plans refer to the site plans prepared by Elizabeth Vanderzant, dated December 12th, 2022. And with the very specific conditions that the applicant must address the full satisfaction of the village engineer, all outstanding stormwater maintenance agreements and engineering issues raised in the hearings and documents submitted to the board. And the applicant shall pay all outstanding consultant review and legal fees in connection with the planning board and review of the application. And the applicant must demonstrate that the proposed planting plan meets the replacement of the 50% of the total aggregate diameter of the trees proposed for removal with the new trees as per section 300-51I. And if the required 50% replacement cannot be met, the applicant must pay the fee in lieu of for the balance of the remaining of the planting requirements.
I move the resolution. Is there a second?
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Goodbye, thank you.
One more vote.
Right.
And then you just need a vote to approve the, for AHRB, the site plan submitted by Elizabeth Vanderzant, last revised December 12th, 2022.
Eventually, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes, so do we have to,
Yes.
everybody, we make a motion? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye. All right.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Yeah, yay. Okay, next on our agenda is 63 Livingston Avenue. Continuation of approval, well,
I assume this is going to be very, very brief.
Let me start. Natasha Walko, here from Opachich Architects, representing the application for 63 Livingston. Okay, so, quick reminder. Oh, share screen.
Also, for the record, were there any, under the new regimen, were there any projects that came in It would have been AHRB that just went to the building department and we're
Not
not,
yet.
not yet.
Right, John?
Okay, so quickly, this is the building that we were last here for, in December for AHRB and planning approval. Just to refresh our existing Ford family that we're restoring and refurbishing and maintaining as an existing Ford family. The outstanding issue when we were last here was about the dimensions for what changes were that we were making to the parking so that a waiver could be configured. And so I will open up, we submitted a diagram. Yep. Right. So we submitted a diagram here amending a previous parking diagram that we had included that focused the dimensions of the portions of the driveway that we were changing and adding within the 10-foot setback in order to satisfy the questions from the building department and set up the waiver.
Okay.
The building department is satisfied?
Yes.
Now, this is a public hearing, so we need to open it.
I move we open the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Speak.
That's right.
The differences between drawing 3 and 3A, it's
Yeah.
only the dimension, the way the dimensions are listed, or I couldn't figure out what.
Well,
It was like one of those pictures, like what's the difference between these two?
Right, yes. So in order the initial diagram number 3 had various dimensions for the driveway, including what the dimensions of the existing portions of the driveway were and the changed dimensions for what we were proposing as changes. Those were done in order to satisfy what we thought the building department was asking for previously as far as additional dimensions for the driveway areas. We learned when we were here at the December meeting that the question the building department was more directly wanting to answer was the differences in what we were changing within the limits of the setback of the 10-foot for the parking. So rather than eliminate the diagram number 3 and risk having dimensions missing that then we would be needing to supply again, we kept that and just amended it or added the 3A diagram, which just includes the dimensions for what we're changing within that 10-foot setback.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone who wants to speak at the public hearing? No one
Nobody
online?
What? No? No. Okay.
That's how you can.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in
Aye.
favor? Good.
So I have a resolution.
Oh, good.
Yeah. This is, again, it'll be for site plan, and the applicant already presented the AHRB stuff prior month. So whereas 63 Livingston LLC is seeking site plan approval to undertake interior and exterior renovations, as well as modifications to the building footprint. Property is located at 63 Livingston. Whereas the planning board conducted a duly noticed public hearing on December 1st, 2022, and it was concluded on January 5th, 2023, during which time all those wishing to be heard were given the opportunity to be heard and provide written comments. Whereas the planning board reviewed and examined letters, reports, and memorandum from the board's consultants and the planning board's recommendation and considered the testimony and comments obtained during the public hearing process. Now therefore be it resolved, the planning board determined that pursuant to section, this is in, because you have the waiver, 352E of the zoning and land use chapter of the village code, the applicant's requested waiver from the requirements of section 300-48C5 will be consistent with the purpose of promoting the health, safety, or general welfare of the community and said chapter, and hereby grants the following: a waiver from the 10-foot driveway setback requirement of section 300-48C5. The applicant proposes a setback of 8 inches on the south property line and a setback of 0 inches on the north property line. Be it further resolved, the planning board of the village of Dobbs Ferry determines that based upon the findings and reasoning set forth below, the application for site plan approval is granted, subject to the following conditions. The approved plans, specifically refer to site plans prepared by Hudson Engineering, dated October 5th, 2022. Tree evaluation report, also dated October 5th. Architectural plans dated November 15th, 2022, and landscape prepared by OPIAC Architects, last revised November 11th, 2022. And the specific conditions relate to the applicant must address to the full satisfaction of the village engineer all outstanding stormwater and stormwater maintenance agreements, and any engineering issues raised at the hearings and documents submitted to the board. The applicant shall pay all outstanding consultant review and legal fees in connection with the planning board and review of this application. And the applicant must demonstrate that the proposed planting plan must meet the replacement of the 50% of the total aggregate diameter of trees proposed for removal with new trees as per section 351I. If the required 50% replacement cannot be met, the applicant must pay the fee in lieu of for the balance of the replanting requirement. We have a motion.
Motion?
I move that we approve that. Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Thank you.
Do
Thank
we
you.
need to do an AHRB?
Yes, and the AHRB vote would specifically refer to the November 15th, 2022 architectural plans.
I make the motion?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good
I
luck.
seconded it.
You did.
I did, in my mind.
Okay, sorry, I jumped in front of you there.
No problem.
All right.
All right.
This is our last.
Item number 3.
Yes, this is the last one.
The last one.
Last one, 10 Hamilton Avenue, Street, Lombardo's, public hearing for proposed construction of pergola for exterior dining.
Right.
I move-
Pat Steinschneider here from Gotham, representing Lombardo's. With us this evening is Emre Uzan, who is the designer, who has invented this structural system for the pergola, who's much more familiar with all of its idiosyncrasies than I am, and all of the flexibilities in the way that it can achieve all of our goals and objectives without an effort. That said, I'm thinking he will go second. I'm hesitating, should I sign on? Do you need to see anything that I've got? I've presented A2.1 and A2.2, two different plans, one that is 12 feet wide, one that's 16 feet wide. My understanding is that your preference is for the 12-foot wide that maintains the
I wouldn't say preference. Right. Anyway.
What is it?
It's not
Wow.
preference,
Has
it's,
nothing to do with preference.
it's the only one that's.
And let's not, don't even go there.
I'm not.
There's one scheme we're looking at, right?
There's
So,
one plan.
Has nothing to do with preference. Right.
So we've submitted that. I don't think you need me to walk you through any of that.
No.
Correct? Good, okay. Because what I'd like to do is instead have Emre be able to sign on and show his stuff, so he can talk about the other two issues that you had. One was the way the stormwater is managed, and the second is the way that the aesthetics work and how this relates to the buildings that are down there. I think, now that I understand it better, I think it's actually a perfect solution for that environment. I agree that it might not fit perfectly on Main Street, but we're not on Main Street. So, you know how to get
I
on.
agree with that.
I mean, or just, can you just?
In the meantime, why don't we open the public hearing?
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I move we open the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the stormwater, maybe I'll just preface it by saying that the outstanding issue was, it was represented that the stormwater would act in the same way that it does without the structure there. In other words, distributing all the stormwater evenly. So it'd be like no change. I just didn't see those details, anything demonstrating that in the submission, and I think that's what they're looking to speak to. If it can't, if there are point discharges of stormwater, then we would recommend that it be picked up and piped with drain.
And we're willing to accept a resolution that stipulates exactly that. My understanding from MRA is that the water comes down in the verticals and then can discharge to a horizontal, if you will, distributor, where the water runs into that, and it's perforated all the way along, so it lets the water run out onto the sidewalk the same as what it is. I'm just talking because he's trying to get hooked on. Somebody should invent an easier way to solve this.
In terms of procedure tonight, if this board is comfortable with the architecture as well as the site plan, you can vote for a recommendation to the village board, and I can write a memo acknowledging that recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
And if there's specific conditions you'd like the village board to be, concerned with or just be aware of, then I can also add that into the recommendation. Clock at this time.
Wait a minute.
That
Oh.
computer's already linked. Well, Christine did. Yeah.
Hi, this is Emre. I just wanted to show a video of how the system works. That might help. Example. So roof is going to be retractable. And it opens about 70% of the projection. And we have side glass that goes up and down, and it becomes a railing when it's all the way down.
How does the glass go? It goes in, one piece is going in front of the
Yep,
other,
like
like
a
a double
slide
hung
door.
window?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This obviously is a permanent structure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like not going away with window or something. It's pretty
It's not
solid.
seasonal or anything, it's,
Yes, it's 24.
Yeah.
huh?
It's not heated or cooled, doesn't have a heating.
Okay.
Not of its own, but presumably it's conditioned by the rest of the,
No, it's already, it's an independent structure that's affixed to the concrete, but it doesn't have its own foundation. Technically, it's a temporary structure.
right?
And it does not have a heating or cooling. It's not, so if it's.
Right, but is it open to the restaurant?
It's not on the inside now.
There's only doors.
There's the doors that go from the inside of the restaurant to the outside area. So it's.
So if you left the doors open,
Sure.
You could get heat, or can you put space heaters in there?
I'm not sure what according to the shaking.
Probably not.
Of course not.
Not by code.
So you just give people like warmers when they go out in the middle of the
I
winter?
think the way this works, that it makes sense, is if you look at what a normal seasonal thing is, you're starting maybe in April, start having some stuff outside, October's pretty good, but you're really gonna, lose March, you're gonna lose November. And this week, if I was sitting in a place that's not getting windy and stuff and not getting rained on, temperature would be fine. So it gives you a lot more of a use throughout the year. Plus, there are all those days that you lose because it's a windy day or it's a rainy day or something in the summertime. So this is a space that greatly enhances their ability to take care of their customers. I think another thing that's very important for it is that it brings more vitality and character to this building, which somehow kind of went from our earliest versions start of that project to where we ended up being losing a lot of stuff. So this, I think, starts to bring some of that vitality, interest, and character of why those terrace areas were created in front of the building.
Before we go there, because and I cut you off, I should have shut up. You were explaining that your job tonight is to explain to Anthony how the drainage works, right?
Sure.
So let's do that.
So I'll open the technical sheet as well, but from the picture I can show you, if you can see the mouse, there's a little, like drain over here. So we collect the water at the top, all the beams, sorry, has built-in gutter. So it collects the water now falling down. Water travels to the post, whichever we decide, and then it comes down with a pipe, hidden pipe in the post, and then it comes out through the bottom. So what we discussed, if should be distributed evenly, we can pretty much put a big linear drain in front of the structure. We can get all the water in, and then with little smaller holes all the way across, it can distribute evenly. That's something.
But the water that's collected at the roof and beam, that comes down through ultimately through one, not through each of the verticals.
Each of them.
Oh, each one?
Yeah.
So each one is like a little leader.
Yep.
And then that can and then what were you proposing in terms of spreading out the?
Yes.
How does it spread, how do you not end up with a point discharge at the base of each?
So,
pier?
the linear drains, right? We can put, starting from here to there, all the way across.
A trench drain along the edge,
Yes.
the leading edge of the.
And water will fall in there. And when it's in there, we can have little holes on the outside face of the drain, and water will just,
And that's in the channel, the bottom channel.
yeah.
And where will that water go?
Just under the concrete.
It would go across the sidewalk essentially,
Right.
where it drains
Into the
now.
into the parking lot.
Have you done this in any other places?
With this I wasn't, it wasn't requested. We usually come down with a pipe and then come out, like you see in the picture. Yeah.
I'm just confused about the function of the trench drain. Is the trench drain the length?
I don't think it's a trench drain. I think they're gonna utilize the lower channel.
Something like
Sounds like.
custom.
And would just put holes in it so that,
Perforated holes in the
Yeah.
bottom channel.
So that it just weeps out presumably
Instead of
along the
coming
hole.
out from one,
yeah, I mean, the
Punch.
question is it going to, evenly distribute, or over time, is it just gonna end up starting to come out a couple of holes on the end? I don't, sounds like a custom job, and I'm not 100% convinced that it would work.
What are the options? Like if they let's say they collect it all and take it down, just the two piers at the extreme ends of the thing.
Well, you
Where
wouldn't
would
want
that
that
water
to
go?
discharge, like from a downspout in one or two points.
Right.
And, in cold weather, you're gonna get water dripping out of there and just icing up, and have a point discharge is.
So where does the water on the roof, the existing roof, go right now?
if you
I
like.
think there must be interior scuppers in the roof. Maybe it might have interior drainage pipes.
Brought to the
I'm not sure.
inside.
This is my runner beam, where the moving components, sitting on top, and it has the built-in gutter right over here. And on the other side, we also have this beam is gutter. And yeah, we collect the water in the beam, and then it traveled down to post like this with a pipe.
Posts act as downspouts, essentially.
Yep.
Right.
You know, it's just a
Usually
matter
we
of-
just do it this way, but yeah, in your case, if it needs to be distributed evenly, then yeah, that's something I came up with.
Where does the water that's on just right now, like if we didn't build this, the water that's on the sidewalk outside of Lombardo, where does that water go?
Sheets across there, it drips off the edge. At the top of it, it actually drips onto the ramp. But about a third of the way down from there to the bottom, it drips into some kind of space. It's just the space between the ramp and the side. It's not controlled, not ideal. But I don't see us being able to, there's not an appropriate or easy way to get this fixed. It doesn't really do any major rework to maybe run the stuff.
And this
Well,
is the,
why couldn't you core the slab and run a pipe through it? Well, you said it's just dripping off the edge. It would only be a few feet from there. What's underneath there?
That's all open down to the parking lot of Mom's.
Lower
What
level.
you have to do is find a way of tying in pipe systems there that Rob was saying, there's covers on the roof, the big buildings. It takes it down to there, so you'd be doing a whole lot of plumbing to get that confirmed.
So you're sitting on the roof of the parking deck below. Yeah, they'd have to go through and hook up
Find
into
a
the
stone-
drain
find a
lines
drain line
underneath,
somewhere.
yeah.
That doesn't make
You know,
sense.
I'm just afraid of, you know, like,
That doesn't make sense.
a nuisance discharge, you know.
It seems like this distributed idea.
This is like a drill, I think, of this bottom. So if you have, it could hold like a half an inch of water, and water, as it came in a heavy rain, it would naturally flow out and dissipate across the tank. So it's not concentrated. We've also, Anthony and I have talked about the idea that, you know, this resolution can include the requirements that if we can't make this thing work, then we have to do something else, which get to Alan's idea of pouring out, putting pipes in and tying in. My reason for not being enthusiastic about that is I think there are a lot of problems down there, the way some of that stuff was built. So me coming to the point of trying to get it makes me think. So the idea of coming down and tying in, I don't know that it's
They've
that
already replaced the concrete
The,
on the parking garage.
yeah, you know, sure, but you should come up to the mic, and introduce yourself.
Just a quick question. So when you're talking about this pan underneath, what is the worry in terms of distribution? That it won't evenly distribute the water because, you know,
Right.
where the water is coming out on each column, it won't reach to, you know, it'll fall out underneath rather than distributed.
Picture if you have a liter downspout discharging onto a sidewalk. In cold months, you end up with just an ice flow coming out of there because water melts, comes out, it refreezes.
And you gotta,
So when it's on the sidewalk, it's coming across the sheet flow and it's dissipating right away. It may take, some time for water to drip out of these gutters, and it happens. You don't want to have point discharges now created running across the sidewalk area.
Understood.
Wouldn't be allowed in any building to just discharge a gutter
I
across the
totally get it.
sidewalk.
But I'm saying, say if we didn't have this channel, we had holes drilled in, but not in the bottom, but on the side, so it would have to reach to a certain level, and then it would have to distribute,
If it was
For instance,
discharging in a safe location,
It's the same location, right?
Well, we don't have a really good location to discharge it.
I'm saying if it were to discharge in the same fashion that it's doing right now, that would be fine.
yeah, it's just a matter of, is that gonna really mimic the sheet flow of the sidewalk the same way, or is it gonna, as that channel, if it's clogged up, if some of the holes get plugged up, you'll end up just having water discharging out of a few holes, and then you end up essentially with,
What if it's a closed system, for instance? What if it's just piping to each of one of those? And then, rather than being on the bottom where the point of discharge, you're saying you'd have a higher, density of water coming
Look,
out?
I'm not saying this isn't gonna work, I just, hearing this discussion, it's hard for me to
No,
say, I don't have a problem with it. So,
saying not
this
coming
could
to-
all be, it could be a conditional thing where
why don't we do
we
that?
definitely want to review the details on this,
Yeah.
if you're gonna develop a detail. for this. We'd want to see that and make sure we're all satisfied, us and the building department, that it's going to discharge the stormwater appropriately. If not, some other method has to be thought of.
Can I ask a quick question? Because my fear is tying in with their pipes underneath there. If we did, I think this will work, so I'm confident that, but if it didn't, would an alternative be, if we were gonna core something, would core something and come under and discharge to the curb? Because theoretically, that's where the water should be running, and that way it would run down the curb and go into the catch basin.
So you'd want to run a pipe all the way out to go out the face of the curb?
Yeah, I mean, that's not far, that's a 10-foot.
But again, I see.
I think it would really be better to tie it into the, drainage system on site.
But again, we could, if you said we could make a condition, part of the resolution, that, if for any reason we discover that the way that the water is being discharged is unsatisfactory, the applicant is required to address that, right? We can do that?
Address it within a certain amount of time, and if they don't, then they have to remove the structure.
That's right, or something like that, yeah. But in some kind of.
Yeah, I mean, if it becomes a nuisance, a problem, an issue,
Has to be fixed.
yeah. I mean, it becomes an enforcement issue though, and for the building department, unfortunately. And, you try to avoid those things, but.
Well, this could also be just, it could be a condition that as they go for site plan approval, that they have to provide some additional information on the.
Sure, they definitely should provide those
Yeah.
details,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Because we're just making a recommendation.
Right.
All right.
For this board, that would just be a recommendation.
Right, we're just
That's
making a
right.
recommendation.
That's right.
Yeah, and that the stormwater be handled appropriately, to the satisfaction of
Right.
the engineer and the building department.
Okay, what was the other issue?
Can I ask a question?
The ADA was the other issue, but that's
That's been resolved.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's,
shows ADA.
Do you offer any other framing, or is that the only unit that you offer? Is there anything that's a little bit more or less boxier looking?
I mean, this is pretty much the, pre-design and engineer system. We don't really have different type of beams. It's not really cost effective to do different type of designs. And you gotta find a way to make it not super bulky, but very strong at the same time. You can't lose the strength. So that's why, like, we can't really change the, the look or something like that. We pretty much customize it with color. We can do any color pretty much.
There's a page of renderings that you submitted that I'm looking at here.
Different
It's sort of a grayish mullion color.
It's kind of a cool product.
Are there, yeah. Are there any, are there any installations of this that we can see?
In New Jersey, yes.
Where in New Jersey? I mean, not that I would go, but I mean, you could take, do you have photos of?
Of course, yeah.
of-
I can show a video actually.
Where in Jersey is it?
It's in Moonachie,
Where's that?
near Teterboro Airport.
Plenty of water there.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
I'm in New Jersey all the time.
It's
So
in
you can
Cloud
stop
Zone.
by, take some photos.
Not in Moonachie. Let's put a little ferry.
I mean, I looked, I guess I sent, I sent that, I looked,
Yeah,
I
that was-
tried looking at a bunch. They're all versions of this.
Yeah.
Because as he's saying, it's a pre-engineered, you're buying a pre-engineered system.
And a mechanical.
There's a limit, you can play with the color, maybe you can play a little bit with the fenestration, I don't know. But they are what they are. It seems like regardless of who makes them.
Right.
I found some photos of Faneuil Hall in Boston, and they had structures like this in place.
Also boxy?
They
or-
weren't so boxy, but
How were they
I don't think they didn't have,
I mean,
well,
they
they
may have
had
also been
thinner-
custom, by the way, we're not talking about something, I mean, you can build something from the ground up for
You can do
amount of
anything.
money, you can do
Yeah.
whatever you want.
Custom
But
grade.
in the world of buying systems, it just looked to me, I just didn't find a lot of variation. You can play with the color of the aluminum. Is this the
This is the one in Monarchy.
Mhm.
Sorry, the connection is not super good. Yeah.
So when we say this is a pre-engineered system, does your company actually apply engineered drawings?
Not just stuck on.
I mean, that can be done, yeah, but
shop
these
drawings,
systems from overseas, so everything pretty much engineered, static reports and everything based on an, metric system. I have all those.
I'm just wondering in terms of
It must have to be
loading and wind loading
yeah.
and things like that for building department.
I'm a civil engineer. I can also submit the analytic reports if you'd like.
I don't need it for this. I'm thinking more ahead, getting building.
So this version is not with the water channeled, is it?
No, it's same one, and you
Same?
can see the water drain over here,
Uh-huh.
right bottom. This is where the water comes out.
Okay.
Every post, the front. And
So
it's
it's
pretty
just
much
on
the
a knee
same,
wall?
yeah, same design. We're just gonna have more units over
Mhm.
here. And yeah, over here it's 3 units. And
Is there lighting in that, or is that the channel?
yes, built-in lights around the perimeter. And for the harsh weather, snowstorms and stuff like that, you can always open the roof. If it's, hurricane or very big winds and stuff like that, if you let the, wind pass through, you're good. You can pretty much just open the roof. That's the whole idea, having, retractable or moving mechanism that allows you to be prepared for harsh weather.
No, I was just asking because in terms of, things like state code and wind loads and so forth, how it's anchored and that'll be up to the building department though, as far as issuing building permit.
And when you anchor this, is it drilled into the existing pavement?
Yes.
And the existing pavement is the floor?
So let me open up the technical detail for that.
So they're expansion anchors in the concrete.
Yep, that's correct. I can just show here. So we do have steel shoe in the post. One side of the post can be pop out. So we do all the, bolting and then stuff inside, and then we put the cover back on so you don't see any, pipe or the bolts. We usually put 6 wedge anchors down there. Depends on the situation. But yeah, we drill down epoxy, wedge anchor, just bolt it down, the concrete.
Okay.
So
Can I move? Can we close the public hearing?
So,
Well, we should ask if anybody wants to speak.
Anybody want-
Okay. I don't think so.
I
So
don't
we can
think
close
so.
the public
Could
hearing.
be somebody online.
so let me ask you, this is a planning board issue, correct?
It's both AHRB.
And now we're doing AHRB.
And it's a recommendation to the
But ultimately,
Board
it's
of
a
Trustees.
recommendation.
It's a recommendation.
Yeah,
So do we need to approve colors and that kind of stuff too?
It's recommendation for, AHRB is also recommendation. Technically, the Board of Trustees has AHRB approval under the Chauncey Park zoning district.
So we are making a
Yeah,
recommendation.
you're making a recommendation for both.
So it's a
Okay.
good question. What color are you guys proposing?
Right.
It's in the renderings, it's this gray.
It's that silver color, the gray,
Silver color
and the red on the top,
Yeah, like a brick color on the top.
on the roof?
Where is the, how, really? That's not shown in the renderings. The renderings just show all gray. Where would the?
Oh, no, the red is inside in the interior,
It's not brick, underside of the roof
the interior,
Uh-huh.
is the brick color.
the
Oh,
ceiling.
And that actually plays
Can we see
significantly
it?
into the appearance, because when you look at this, most of the time you're looking up.
Yeah, but it's not rendered, in the renderings, it's not
Yeah, I can pull up.
shown that way. I mean, it's okay. And I agree with you that that would make a difference, but I just don't see it in the renderings.
My old one had a touch screen on it. I kept getting in trouble.
It's right above where it says roof color from example.
Yeah, roof color from example, but.
Yeah, so that's what he's proposing. for the
Right,
roof.
which would make, because you're gonna see it from a half a level down, looking up.
So for example, this one, the roof is brick color, but I think the TV
TV's gonna turn off.
Something.
Who has the TV remote?
Oh, I don't even know where they are.
What if it was a cream color?
There we go.
All-purpose applicant.
I like it.
We need one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to close our public hearing and then make a recommendation to the trustees.
I like that suggestion of the cream color.
This isn't technically a public hearing because, long story, you don't necessarily have to have a public hearing associated with a recommendation, although the board likes to have one. When the building department sent out the notifications for technically the public hearing, the newspaper failed to print the public hearing notice.
Oh, good.
But you can still move forward with your recommendation because it's not required, public hearing is not required for recommendation.
Okay, good.
Dan, if I'm saying anything correct.
Yeah, that's right.
So what we're doing is.
So you're going to close the public hearing, right?
No,
You know, you're not, there's no public.
We're not-
Oh,
We're ready,
okay.
what we're ready for is a recommendation,
Yes.
recommendation to the planning, to the Board of Trustees on both planning aspects and
Yes.
the
Right.
AHRB aspect.
Right,
That's it.
right. All right. I move that.
Our proudest moment.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I will put together a small resolution to send to the board, which I'll send over to the building.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Patty, when you go to submit for the Board of Trustees, submit to the building department directly, because they're gonna organize it, as opposed to going to Liz.
Yeah, I always submit to the
In the past, not you, but other applicants submit to Liz, and then it gets all sorts of confusing.
I've been taught, like, not with Dan.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You're welcome.
I like you guys.